Chapter 128. In order to protect Ling Xiao had sealed off the news, so the people outside only knew that the divine sword had descended, but did not know that Ling Xiao had displayed his might. Ling Yihang, Ling Zhan, and the others laughed. Only they knew how terrifying Ling Xiao was. Not to mention 2 experts at the peak of the 6th level of the martial vein. Even if a martial master at the early 7th level of the martial vein came, Ling Xiao would still be able to escape even if he couldn't defeat them. If they went, they would only add trouble to Ling Xiao. No one wanted to be a burden. What are you laughing at? The messenger was infuriated. Don't worry, with him going, the black scarf thieves are finished. Ling Yihang said with a smile, You should go and receive treatment. Just wait here for the good news. The informant looked at them suspiciously. He noticed that among the people present, there was a white-haired woman who emitted a terrifying aura that only a martial master could have. Even this woman said that Ling Xiao was powerful. That should be about right. On a road leading to Tianfeng City, a battle was going on. The battle was basically one-sided. Dozens of warriors were surrounded in the center, and dozens of black scarf thieves were constantly shrinking the encirclement. Every time the encirclement shrank, a warrior would die or be seriously injured. Shimin Sun watched as the black scarf thief's blade stabbed towards his chest. The distance was getting closer and closer, but he was powerless. He was a genius. At the age of 12, he had already cultivated to the peak of the 5th level of the martial vein. It was a pity that his family was only a very small family, much smaller than the Ling family. There were not many resources or martial arts for him to learn. If he wanted to succeed, he could only choose to rely on other families. And Tianfeng City's Ling family was too famous recently, so he came this time to rely on them. But he did not expect that he would lose his life here before he even saw the Ling family. He was not willing. He was not willing. Kacha! Suddenly, the blade that was about to pierce him shattered. A stalwart figure appeared in front of him, but it disappeared in an instant. That figure turned into an afterimage and circled around the encirclement. There were more than 60 black scarf bandits, but 20 to 30 of them died in an instant. There were more than a dozen warriors who had been saved by this figure. Who are you? Why do you want to ruin my plans? The leader of this group of black scarf bandits could tell that this person was not to be trifled with, so they did not attack directly. Instead, they hoped to reveal their identities and let this person leave voluntarily. Ling Xiao. That figure floated in midair with his hands behind his back, like a god descending to earth. Ling family. That's great. The Ling family has sent experts to save us. We're saved, but he's alone. There are more than 40 black scarf bandits. Yeah, can one person do it? The other side has 2 martial artists at the peak of the 6th level. This person is only at the peak of the 5th level. The dozens of martial artists who were surrounded were excited at first, but then they were deeply disappointed. Ling Xiao realized that he had not changed his template yet, so in the eyes of others he was still a martial artist at the peak of the 5th level. Let's go together. With the Ling family, we should be able to escape. Someone suggested. Yes, no matter what, he is still a martial artist at the peak of the 5th level. We have all seen how strong he is. Even if he can't defeat the black scarf bandits, escaping shouldn't be a problem. Want to escape? Today, none of you will leave. The leader of the black scarf bandits sneered. Since he knew that the other party was from the Ling family, he could not let him go. All of you, just watch. Don't make a move. Ling Xiao said indifferently. The ice glass sword was already in his hand. Double shadow sword art had already been cultivated to the perfection stage. It was time to test its power. These dozens of black scarf bandits were better for practice. Brat, aren't you afraid of biting your tongue? When the leader of the black scarf bandits heard Ling Xiao's words, he could not help but be stunned for a moment before laughing out loud. Ling Xiao did not speak. His figure suddenly floated. and in an instant it turned from 1 to 5. 3 shadow doppelgangers, 1 martial spirit doppelganger in the main body. This scene caused the Black Scarf Bandits to be extremely shocked. However, before they could react, only 2 of the 40 people were left. In just one move, nearly 40 Black Scarf Bandits were killed in an instant. Ling Xiao's terror far exceeded everyone's expectations. At this moment, whether it was the remaining 2 Black Scarf Bandits at the peak of the 6th level martial vein or the rescued martial artists, they were all in disbelief. Brat, you do have some skills. Why don't you submit to our Black Scarf army? As long as you are willing, you will be one of the leaders. Don't you think it's a little too late to say this now? Ling Xiao sneered again and again. Brat, you are courting death. The 2 Black Scarf Bandits looked at each other and then actually left their horses at the same time. They attacked Ling Xiao from both sides. Ling Xiao did not move. He just stood there as if he could no longer move. He had already tried the multiple shadow sword art. Next, he wanted to try another killing move. Geocentric Ice Lotus Bind. He sheathed his long sword and activated the Snow Lotus Chi art. Then he used the secret technique he got from Ling Yixue. The Snow Lotus Chi art had reached the perfection realm, which made the power of the Geocentric Ice Lotus Bind even stronger. Thus, a strange scene appeared. In mid-air, the 2 Black Scarf Bandits at the peak of the 6th level martial vein seemed to be frozen. Although they still maintained their attacking posture, the 2 of them were completely frozen. Then they fell to the ground freely. Kacha! It shattered like an ice cube. Although there was no blood, their bodies were shattered. They couldn't be more dead. Too strong. Shimin Xuanqiang swallowed a mouthful of saliva. He simply could not believe that Ling Xiao was so strong. Was this a disciple of the Ling family? It seemed that he really came to the right place. Yeah, how can he be so strong? The rest of the martial artists were also shocked. You guys go to the Ling family. Now that the Divine Sword Sect has been established, you guys will naturally have a bright future. Ling Xiao looked back at these people and said indifferently, Expert, are you not going back with us? Shimin Sun asked. I still have to go to the Black Scarf Bandits' nest. This group of Black Scarf Bandits has been roaming around the Dragon Submission mountain range for long enough. It's time to clean them up. What? When Ling Xiao said this, the group of martial artists were all shocked. What was wrong with this person? It was already not easy to defeat these Black Scarf Bandits. But he still wanted to go to their nest? Wasn't he too conceited? Expert, it's not that we don't believe in your strength, but there are still 11 peak 6th level martial vein realm martial artists in the nest. You really can't do it alone. You should go back and get reinforcements. Shimin Sun said loudly, Thank you for the reminder, but you don't have to worry. Ling Xiao did not explain further. His figure flashed, and he had already dashed dozens of feet away, disappearing in an instant. Too fast! Yeah, this speed is simply terrifying. He shouldn't be a peak 5th level martial vein realm martial artist, right? But even if he is a peak 6th level martial vein realm martial artist, can he win against 11 martial artists of the same strength and hundreds of Black Scarf Bandits? Who knows? But I saw that he just killed those dozens of Black Scarf Bandits without any effort. It shouldn't be a problem. Chapter 129. The group of young martial artists wanted to follow and watch the show. Only then did they realize that they had no idea where the Black Scarf Bandits' lair was. And Ling Xiao's speed was so fast that they couldn't catch up even if they rode their horses. So after chasing for a while, they could only give up and rush towards Tianfeng City. If a disciple of the Ling family was already so powerful, then how terrifying would the Ling family be? At this time, Ling Xiao was already several kilometers away, because his soaring cloud steps had advanced once again. This time, the advancement of the soaring cloud steps was not due to the help of other peak level movement techniques, but because of Ling Xiao's comprehension of the profound mysteries of the transcendent martial technique. He fused that profound meaning into the soaring cloud steps, causing the soaring cloud steps. Infant dragon to be successfully upgraded to the soaring cloud steps. Ice dragon. When he used it, the small dragon, which was originally only 2 to 3 meters long, actually became more than 10 meters long. Not only that, if Ling Xiao was willing, he could turn any place he passed into a world of ice crystals. This soaring cloud steps had completely changed from a pure movement technique to a combination of movement techniques and martial techniques. And soaring cloud steps had raised the soaring cloud steps from a rare peak level martial technique to a high grade peak level martial technique. In other words, it was the strongest movement technique below transcendent martial techniques. At the same time, Ox Devil Arts had also advanced, becoming Ox Devil Arts. It was also a high grade peak level martial technique, similar to the transformation. After using it, the body would be wrapped in a huge shell of the Ox Devil clan, except that the shell was now more real. It was as if it was wrapped in a layer of ice crystals. Combined with Snow Lotus Chi arts, it was truly shocking. Although Ling Xiao hadn't completely mastered the 5-sword moves of Snow Lotus sword arts, the benefits he gained from the profound mysteries were not small. At this moment, he was relying on the soaring cloud steps. Ice dragon to fly in the sky to his heart's content. He didn't need to land at all to borrow strength. Moreover, his speed was extremely fast. Flying in the air, he was like a transparent shadow. If one wasn't strong enough, or if they didn't pay attention, they would very likely think that their eyes were playing tricks on them. Not long after, Ling Xiao found the Black Scarf Bandit's lair. With the help of the mountain river diagram, it was actually very easy for him to find this place. This was also the reason why he dared to ask Ling Xiaotian for permission to go to the Black Scarf Bandit's lair alone. Dragon Submission Mountain Range, Black Turban Bandit's lair. Suddenly a dragon roar sounded. The leader of the Black Scarf Bandits, who was sitting on the first chair, suddenly stood up. What happened? Report. At this time, a manservant ran in from outside in a panic and said loudly, reporting to the leaders, a strange ice dragon appeared outside and killed our brothers miserably. Ice dragon? Are your eyes playing tricks on you? Demonic beasts of that level have long been extinct, right? The second leader said with a cold face, I don't dare to lie to you all. That is indeed an ice dragon, but there seems to be a person inside. He claims to be Ling Xiao from the Ling family. Ling family? Could he be a martial master? Someone's expression changed drastically. Impossible. As long as one of the Ling family's martial masters makes a move, we will all know. It should be a reckless guy. The leader waved his hand and said, This kind of small matter is worth reporting. Did you all grow up in a asterisk? Hurry up and kill that guy. But leader, that person is really powerful. He is at least a martial artist at the peak of the 6th level of the martial vein. So what if he is at the peak of the 6th level of the martial vein? There are hundreds of you, and many of you are at the 6th level of the martial vein. Can't you kill him alone? Report. At this time, another manservant ran in and reported loudly, Leaders, that guy is really too powerful. We tried to shoot him with strong bows and crossbows, but who knew that this guy would easily shatter them all? Report. Ling Xiao has broken into the mountain. We have suffered heavy losses. Report. The number of casualties has risen to 100. Report. 150 people have been killed. Among them, 3 martial artists at the middle stage of the 6th level of the martial vein were no match for him. Report. That guy is too ferocious. Wherever he goes, 100 meters of ice is sealed. Hundreds of people are directly frozen. The continuous reports made the remaining 11 leaders at the peak of the 6th level of the martial vein have ugly expressions on their faces. Big brother, we can't wait any longer. Let's kill our way out. The third leader stood up and said loudly, No, wait for him to come in. The leader shook his head and said, You guys immediately send the order for everyone to move aside and make a path for that kid." Even though the attendants didn't understand why, they still did as they were told. After all, they were utterly unable to obstruct Ling Xiao at this moment. So instead of trying to give their lives away, it was better to retreat and strive to preserve their lives. After the manservants left, the leader said, "It seems that this person's strength is not ordinary. He is definitely one of the best among the martial artists at the peak of the 6th level of the martial vein. The 11 of us can ambush him here. As long as he comes in, we will join hands to kill him. We will not give him a chance to turn the tables." So that's how it is. Big Brother is wise. Only then did everyone come to a realization. However, they did not know that by doing so, they had already lost in terms of momentum. It was equivalent to admitting that they were inferior to Ling Xiao. However, they did not care. As bandits, their goal was to kill the enemy. Bullying others with numbers was something they often did. As long as that kid dares to come in, he will be left without a corpse. Does he really think he is that old thing, Ling Xiaotian? I'm in, but I don't know how you're going to leave me without a corpse. Suddenly, an indifferent voice came from the door. Ling Xiao actually walked in from the door in a grand manner. 11, hee, just in time to save me the trouble of looking everywhere. Surround him. When the leader saw that Ling Xiao had actually walked in so boldly, he completely did not put the 11 leaders in his eyes. He was immediately furious and ordered everyone to surround Ling Xiao. "Brat, you've walked right into our trap today. Even if that old man Ling Xiaotian wants to save you, he won't have the chance." After surrounding Ling Xiao, the 11 leaders immediately laughed out loud. This was because they could see that Ling Xiao's strength had definitely not reached the level of a martial master. As long as he was not a martial master, even a martial artist at the peak of the 6th level of the martial vein would not be able to survive their siege. Not to mention that Ling Xiao's current cultivation seemed to only be at the peak of the 5th level of the martial vein. When they surrounded Ling Xiao, they secretly circulated their energy and prepared to attack at the same time, hoping to kill Ling Xiao in one fell swoop. Save me? Why do you want to save me? On the other hand, you should think about whether the ninjas you've joined will send experts to save you. Ling Xiao's expression was still indifferent, and he did not look nervous at all. "Young man, you don't have to pretend to be calm. That old thing Ling Xiaotian sent you to our Black Scarf Gang's lair to send you to your death. You still foolishly work for others." The leader said with a smile, "If you're willing, you can join our Black Scarf Gang and serve the Ninja Emperor of the Ninja Clan. We'll guarantee you a high position and wealth." "If I say that I killed 2 of your leaders, will you still invite me?" Ling Xiao asked the leader of the Black Scarf Bandits. Chapter 130. Bandits will always be bandits. How could I, Ling Xiao, associate myself with you? Ling Xiao shook his head lightly when he heard the leader of the Black Scarf Bandits. "Novels. Looks like you're really looking for death." The team leader's face darkened. "Big Brother, don't waste your breath on this brat. Let's capture him first to avoid unnecessary trouble." The second in command shouted. "Go." The team leader waved his hand. Apart from him, the other 10 team leaders attacked at the same time. Falcon Fist, Flying Sword, Breaking Wind Saber, Hunting Wolf Kick. The 10 leaders were all at the peak of the 6th level of the martial vein. At this moment, each of them displayed their famous ultimate skills and attacked Ling Xiao from all sides. The team leader didn't make a move because he wanted to prevent Ling Xiao from escaping and then intercept him. In the eyes of these people, Ling Xiao's only threat was his speed. This could be analyzed based on the servant's report just now. However, Ling Xiao just stood there. Not only did he have no intention of running away, he didn't even have any intention of attacking. He just stared at the team leader, and a disdainful smile gradually appeared on his face. This group of bandits had been living in the Dragon Submission Mountain Range for many years and were used to bullying the weak. They did not dare to offend the Tianfeng city's 4 great clans. This made them truly look like frogs at the bottom of a well. Other than conceit and ignorance, he had no other characteristics. Clang, zung, bang, pa. Because Ling Xiao didn't dodge, the attacks of the 10 black scarf bandits all landed on him. Demon Ox Art, Ice Demon. In that instant, Ling Xiao's entire body seemed to have suddenly expanded. But in reality, his body was wrapped in an ice demon shell that was 2 to 3 meters tall. When the attacks of the 10 leaders landed on the ice devil shell, not only did they not cause any damage to Ling Xiao, but they were also injured by the Snow Lotus Gang Chi that instantly shot out. This Snow Lotus energy came from the perfect stage of the superior grade martial technique, Snow Lotus Energy Technique. The terrifying power was not something a martial artist at the 6th level of the martial vein could withstand. Not to mention that these 10 leaders were so focused on attacking Ling Xiao that they did not put up any defenses. As the frigid stellar energy entered their bodies, they were instantly frozen solid. Bang, bang, bang. At that moment, Ling Xiao seized the opportunity to use the meteor punch, sending a punch to each of the 10 black scarf bandits' leaders. They were all sent flying. Once the frozen person hit a hard spot, the result was obvious. Even a Daluo immortal would not be able to save them. Seeing this scene, the head of the black scarf bandits, who had not made a move, was completely dumbfounded. He had thought of many possibilities, but he had never thought that this would be the result. The strength displayed by this young man was much stronger than an ordinary martial artist at the peak of the 6th level of the martial vein, although he had yet to reach the martial master realm. However, it would not be an exaggeration to say that he was a half-step martial master. When did the Ling family have such a monster? The team leader was shocked. Even though he'd heard of the outcome of the Heaven Peak Grand Meeting, he'd never paid much attention to a grand meeting of children. From the looks of it, it was a mistake. Now that your 12 brothers have been killed by me, it won't be good for you to continue living. Let them have a companion on their way to the Yellow Springs. Ling Xiao said calmly as he looked at the head of the black scarf bandits. Brat, you're ruthless enough. The head of the black scarf bandits said through gritted teeth. Ruthless? Compared to the black scarf bandits who massacred ordinary people and killed low-level martial artists, it's a far cry. Ling Xiao said indifferently, Little brother, I know you hate our black scarf army, but we have no enmity with you in the past. Now that you've killed 12 of my brothers and many of my subordinates, shouldn't you vent your hatred? What do you want to say? Don't beat around the bush. Ling Xiao said coldly, Little brother is indeed straightforward. All right, I'll hand over all the wealth of the Black Scarf Army in exchange for my life. How about it? The head of the Black Scarf Bandits rolled his eyes and said, Do you think you have the qualifications to negotiate with me? Ling Xiao said indifferently, Little brother, don't be too conceited. I admit that you're very strong, but I have a treasure in my hands. If we really fight, it will inevitably be a situation where both sides will suffer. The head of the Black Scarf Bandits said, Well, it's not difficult for me to let you go, but your wealth better be worth your life. Ling Xiao said in a low voice. Hearing Ling Xiao's words, the head of the Black Scarf Bandits was overjoyed. Little brother, don't worry. I'll definitely let you be satisfied. Please follow me. Ling Xiao nodded and followed behind the head of the Black Scarf Bandits to the treasury. However, the head of the Black Scarf Bandits did not notice that Ling Xiao seemed to have done something the moment he turned around. The two of them arrived at the underground of the Black Scarf Bandits' lair. There was a huge treasury built here. After all, even in the Tianfeng city's 4 great families, there were not many people who had storage rings. The Black Scarf Bandits probably only had a total of 4 or 5 storage rings, and they were all ordinary items. The space inside was only 1 square foot, which was very small. It was impossible to store so many treasures. When the door of the treasury opened, Ling Xiao was greeted by a sight of gold. Although he did not look carefully, Ling Xiao was basically sure that the gold inside was enough for him to cultivate the 9 transformation golden body technique to the 8th transformation. In addition to gold, there was also a large amount of silver and a small amount of spiritual stones. Spiritual stones were much more precious than gold and silver. This had already been mentioned before. Ling Xiao only had a total of 100 low-grade spiritual stones. However, there were at least 30,000 to 40,000 low-grade spiritual stones in the Black Scarf Bandit's lair. It was simply a fortune. How is it, little brother? Are you satisfied? When the head of the Black Scarf Bandits saw that Ling Xiao was attracted by the treasures in the treasury, he smiled and approached Ling Xiao. At this moment, something strange happened. Black Tiger Steel's heart. In that instant, the head of the Black Scarf Bandits suddenly erupted with earth energy. He used the Black Tiger Steel's heart of the Black Tiger Fist and attacked Ling Xiao's back. The distance was too close. The speed was too fast. In this situation, it seemed that Ling Xiao did not have the slightest time to react, let alone defend. After all, the head of the Black Scarf Bandits was also a martial artist at the peak of the 6th level of the martial vein. The fist directly smashed into Ling Xiao's body, and the head of the Black Scarf Bandits revealed a maniacal smile. Brat, didn't anyone tell you not to believe the words of bandits? That's right, no one has ever told me. But this time I've learned it. Ling Xiao's voice actually came from behind the head of the Black Scarf Bandits. This caused the head of the Black Scarf Bandits to tremble, and his mind was in a mess. He did not understand why Ling Xiao would appear behind him when he had clearly killed Ling Xiao. You, how did you do it? There was nothing that could shock him more than this. Not only was this young man powerful, but he also had too many tricks up his sleeve. It was simply impossible to guard against. Sai, after taking your things, I was afraid that I would be too soft to kill you. However, since you have done it yourself, then I have no reason to hesitate. Ling Xiao sighed, seeing that the head of the Black Scarf Bandits was about to reach for something at his waist. He suddenly raised his hand. A sword light shot out. The speed was so fast that it even surpassed Ling Xiao's own movement technique. The head of the Black Scarf Bandits stopped moving. Chapter 131. Come back. The flying sword was recalled back into the mountain river world. Originally, Ling Xiao could have killed the leader of the Black Scarf Thieves outside, but he lacked resources. The treasures of the Black Scarf Thieves had a fatal attraction to him. Therefore, he created his martial spirit avatar and followed behind the leader of the Black Scarf Thieves. It was to guard against this fellow's sneak attack. He didn't expect the other party to really launch a sneak attack. If it was his real body, he would probably be injured. After that, he saw that the leader of the Black Scarf Thieves wanted to take something. He was afraid that something unexpected would happen, so he used the Imperial Sword technique to kill him. Although he didn't know what the leader of the Black Scarf Thieves wanted to take. At that moment, the Mountain River martial spirit gave him a warning of danger. This meant that what the leader of the Black Scarf Thieves wanted to take was enough to pose a threat to him. Ling Xiao walked over and took the storage ring from the leader's hand. Other than some high-level martial arts, a top-notch beginner-level martial arts, gold and silver, and dozens of low-grade spirit stones, there was nothing else. It was estimated that the storage rings of the top few leaders would be filled with similar things. He thought for a moment, then took out the gold and spirit stones and put them into the mountain river world. He prepared to leave the rest of the things for the Ling family. In any case, he didn't need the silver. He didn't care about high-level martial arts, and beginner-level martial arts didn't have much attraction to him. After taking the storage ring, he swept everything in the Black Scarf Thieves' treasury into the mountain river world. It was the same. He left the silver for the Ling family to rebuild and kept the gold and low-grade spirit stones for himself. After that, he took the thing from the waist of the leader of the Black Scarf Thieves. After the analysis of the mountain river martial spirit, he came to a conclusion The exterminating dragon pill was a byproduct of a failed refinement. It had a terrifying explosive power and could injure a martial artist at the 7th level of the martial vein. Once a martial artist below the peak of the 6th level of the martial vein was blown up, they would die without a doubt. Because this item was produced by chance, it couldn't be mass-produced and was extremely rare. What a terrifying thing. Fortunately, I didn't let that guy use it. Otherwise, I would definitely be injured. Ling Xiao sucked in a breath of cold air. He had to thank his mountain river martial spirit for reminding him in time. He kept the exterminating dragon pill in the mountain river world and went to the hall from before. He took out the other 4 storage rings and put all the gold and low-grade spirit stones in the mountain river world. As for the rest, such as martial arts and silver, they were all gathered together and then shot out a whistling arrow. This whistling arrow was used by the Ling family to summon people when there was an emergency. They would have to trouble the Ling family to transport these things back. He would never give the storage ring to the Ling family. Although he now had a total of 7 storage rings, including the ones he obtained in the past, these things could be used to exchange for spirit stones. When he arrived at the White Cloud capital, he would sell all 7 storage rings. He didn't need it anyway. The storage ability of the Mountain River world was much stronger than that of a storage ring. Once the whistling arrow was fired, the Ling family members arrived in 15 minutes. The number of people who came was truly frightening. There was actually Ling Xiaotian and 3 grand elders, as well as Ling Yixue and Ling Yihang. It was estimated that only Ling Wuheng, who was the current divine sword sect leader, was left in Tianfeng City. After entering the Black Scarf Bandits' lair, the Ling family's patriarch, Ling Xiaotian, and the others were completely dumbfounded. Although they believed that Ling Xiao could deal with the Black Scarf Bandits, they didn't expect it to be so easy. It didn't take long for the Black Scarf Bandits to be completely uprooted. Not only that, even the underground treasury of the Black Scarf Bandits was taken out. Patriarch, I'll have to trouble you to bring these things back to the Ling family. I've also wasted a lot of time. It's time to leave. Ling Xiao had completely familiarized himself with his strength after eliminating the Black Scarf Bandits. At present, it could be said that he was invincible below the Martial Master level. Even a half-step Martial Master would not be able to gain an advantage in front of him. Therefore, he had to leave this place as soon as possible. Only by going to a wider place would he be able to develop further. Junior brother, I'll go with you. After Ling Xiao left, Ling Yixue had been feeling uneasy. Originally, she wanted to secretly follow Ling Xiao. However, she didn't expect Ling Xiao to shoot a whistling arrow. She thought that something had happened to Ling Xiao, so she hurried over. Some things were only known to be precious after they were lost. Ling Yixue thought that she wouldn't care too much about Ling Xiao leaving. However, when Ling Xiao really left, she realized that this person's image had been deeply imprinted in her heart. She also saw through her own heart because of this. Therefore, she proposed to leave with Ling Xiao. I couldn't ask for more. Ling Xiao smiled and said, "Senior sister is now a martial master. When I go to the White Cloud capital, I still have to rely on senior sister's protection." Actually, he also wanted Ling Yixue to go to the White Cloud capital with him. This was because there wasn't much point for Ling Yixue to stay in Tianfeng City. It would only waste her talent. "You're such a sweet talker." Hearing Ling Xiao's words, Ling Yixue couldn't help but smile bitterly. Although she was indeed a martial master, she knew in her heart that even if she were to face Ling Xiao now, her chances of winning were less than 50%. The most terrifying thing about Ling Xiao wasn't his strength, but his terrifying wisdom. If the 2 of you want to go to the White Cloud capital, I suggest you make a trip to the Dragon Gate first. Ever since Ling Xiaotian knew that Ling Xiao was going to the White Cloud capital, he had been busy gathering information, hoping to find a shortcut that would make it easier for Ling Xiao to integrate into the White Cloud capital. Just a moment ago, he received a piece of news. Therefore, he came personally this time with a purpose. Dragon Gate. Yes, the Dragon Gate is a port near Tianfeng City. Often, cargo ships from the Ninja Clan, Blue Eyes Clan, and other clans would arrive. Ling Xiaotian replied, I know this place, but why are we going there? I said that I want to go to the White Cloud capital. Ling Xiao asked, a little puzzled. Have you heard of the illusion pill? Ling Xiaotian asked. I've heard of it. Ling Xiao used to be a beggar, so he had heard a lot of strange things. Rumor had it that the illusion pill was a kind of pill that came from overseas. It could make a martial artist's cultivation easier and increase their strength quickly. That was why it was called the illusion pill. After he told Ling Xiaotian this, Ling Xiaotian shook his head and said, The illusion pill does have the effect that you mentioned. However, once this pill is consumed, you can't get rid of it. If you stop using it for a day, you'll feel uncomfortable all over. If you stop using it for a month, you'll feel unbearably itchy. If you stop using it for 3 months, you'll lose all your martial arts. That's so scary. Ling Xiao couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. Many people think that the illusion pill is a good thing, but this thing is very addictive. Moreover, you can't stop using it after using it. This is equivalent to being caught by others. Ling Xiaotian lamented. I heard that the illusion pill is secretly refined by the Ninja Clan. It's to be sold in the human territory so that the human martial artists will listen to their orders and become puppets. Thank you for the reminder, Patriarch. The two of us will definitely not consume such things. Ling Xiao said seriously. Yes, that's for the best. However, this isn't the only reason I'm talking about this. Actually, I want you and Yi Shui to seek refuge with Lord Lin Zhe, who is in charge of destroying the illusion pill in the Dragon Gate. Ling Xiaotian finally revealed his true intentions. Chapter 132. Tianfeng City, Dragon Gate Harbor. Billowing, smoke drifted out from a deep pit in the harbor. It was emitted by the fantasy pills burned by the Baiyun Province's Border General, Lin Zhe. As the Baiyun Province's Border General, Lin Zhe was probably the only person in the entire Baiyun Province who did not fear Governor Wanben. He was upright and plain-spoken and abhorred evil. His attitude toward ninjas was completely different from Governor Wanben's. Although the burning of the fantasy pills at the Dragon Gate Harbor was an order from the Northern Han Imperial Court, if Lin Zhe had not stood his ground, the matter would not have been carried out in the Baiyun Province. On the day of the burning of the fantasy pills, young cultivators from Tianfeng City came to observe. Lin Zhe announced something on the spot. Due to the support of the Tianfeng City's young cultivators for the burning of the fantasy pills, a few of them would be chosen to go with him to Baiyun Province and enter the Border General's residence to be groomed. The influence of this matter among the cultivators was naturally greater than the burning of the fantasy pills. That day, Lin Zhe set up an arena at the harbor and ordered one of his young subordinates to accept the challenge. The cultivator's name was Lin Qin. He was a 16-year-old cultivator at the peak of the 6th layer of the martial vein realm. He could be considered to have a boundless future. The requirement was very simple. If one could exchange over 100 moves with him, they would be qualified to go with him to Baiyun Province. Lin Zhe sat in the referee's seat. He was dressed in martial attire and radiated a heroic aura. He was tall and straight, and his beard was about a foot long. Although he was over 50 years old, he looked very healthy. His body seemed to contain a terrifying power. Just by sitting there, he gave off an enormous pressure. However, it was very strange. No matter how one looked at him, Lin Zhe seemed to be an extremely ordinary cultivator. Everyone found it very strange. Where did that powerful pressure come from? Perhaps only after reaching the martial master realm could one truly understand how terrifying Lin Zhe was. The reason why Lin Zhe looked like an ordinary cultivator was because he had cultivated to a terrifying level of quintessential essence. Even if he did not use any aura-concealing martial arts, he could still restrain his quintessential essence. The reason why he was still so mighty and terrifying was because he was a general. That was because, as a general, he had slaughtered on the battlefield. The number of foreign martial artists who had died at his hands was not a small number. That kind of might could be understood as killing intent. It was not something that could be cultivated through pure cultivation. It could only be tempered through slaughter. It was rumored that when Lin Zhe was 30 years old, he had already reached the 9th level of the martial vein and opened 9 martial veins. That year, he had single-handedly taken the enemy's head and saved the life of the prince of the sacred dynasty. In that battle, he actually killed more than 10 martial artists of the same level in succession, shocking the entire imperial court and causing the bandits to be utterly defeated. What was even more terrifying was that after Rins was promoted to the position of border guard general, there was once when he chased after a ninja assassin who had sneaked into the White Cloud capital to assassinate the previous governor. He actually chopped off the head of a 9th level demon beast with a single slash and finally cut off the head of the ninja. There were many legends about this person. There were even many stories and stories about him among the common people. In all of Northern Han, and even in the sacred dynasty, there were very few people who had never heard of Lin Zhe. And this time, Lin Zhe came to the Dragon Gate to burn the illusion pills that harmed people. He even fought against 3 ninjas at the 9th level of the martial vein and killed all 3 of them. Otherwise, it would be impossible for so many illusion pills to be seized. Because of this, Lin Zhe's appearance really made the Dragon Gate and even Tianfeng City's martial artists go crazy. After all, the strongest person in the entire Tianfeng City was only the Ling clan's ancestor, Ling Xiaotian, who was only at the peak of the 7th level of the martial vein. In front of Lin Zhe, Ling Xiaotian was like a baby who wasn't even a month old. Not worth mentioning. Now, Lin Zhe gave everyone a chance to follow Lin Zhe. Who wouldn't be tempted? Unfortunately, the Tianfeng City's martial artists really disappointed Lin Zhe. Since the beginning of the selection, not a single martial artist could last more than 3 moves from Lin Chen. Now that over 100 people had challenged him, Lin Zhe gradually lost his patience. He started to doubt whether his decision this time was correct. Actually, there was a reason why he did this. He heard that the Heavenly Ninja Academy, led by the ninjas, had once come to Tianfeng City to scout for talents. They obtained a person called Li Xinghui and another called Shi Yulian. He had seen these 2 people before, and they were indeed extraordinary. With a little tempering, they could become useful talents. It was because of this that he thought of holding such a selection. However, the reality made him a little disappointed. Could it be that in such a big Tianfeng city, there really isn't a talented young martial artist? Or are all the talents recruited by the Heavenly Ninja Academy? Lin Zhe shook his head gently and looked at the sky. It was almost dark, so he decided to wait until it was dark to end this boring selection. However, at this moment, a person suddenly appeared in the arena. Junior Ling Fifan greets the border guarding general. Ling Fifan? Lin Zhe vaguely heard that the Ling clan was surrounded by the ninjas, the Shi clan, and the Li clan, but they survived in the end. There must be a talent in the ninjas. Sir, I've heard of this person. Lin Chen whispered. I was fortunate enough to visit Tianfeng City and the Ling clan once. This Ling Fifan was known as the most outstanding talent in the younger generation of the Ling clan. Like Li Xinghui, he was one of the 4 princes of Tianfeng City. Oh, and that was a year ago. The current Ling Fifan seems to be even better than a year ago. Lin Chen continued. If that's the case, then let him try. But you can't be merciful. If he can withstand 100 moves from you, then we'll take him away. If he can't, then we'll immediately stop this boring selection. Lin Zhe said that for a reason. Since Ling Fifan was one of the 4 princes of Tianfeng City, like Li Xinghui, then he should be the top of the younger generation in Tianfeng City. If he couldn't do it, then the others couldn't. I understand. Lin Chen naturally wouldn't be merciful. He was about the same age as Ling Fifan, and now he was following General Lin Zhe. If he was defeated by Ling Fifan, not only would he be humiliated, but Lin Zhe would also be humiliated. This young man is not bad. He looks like he's only 17 or 18 years old, but he has already reached the 6th level of the martial vein. This is very rare, at least in a small place like Tianfeng City. Lin Zhe was looking forward to Ling Fifan's performance. After all, Ling Fifan was much stronger than the previous warriors. Ling Fifan looked at Lin Zhe with excitement in his heart. In fact, he had already returned to Tianfeng City, but he didn't dare to approach the Ling clan when they were besieged. He even came to the Dragon Gate harbor and wanted to leave Tianfeng City by boat, because he felt that the Ling clan was finished, and he would definitely die if he stayed here. But man proposes, God disposes. He learned to take the illusion pill in the Dragon Gate harbor, and his strength increased rapidly. He was now a peak 6th level martial artist. However, the terrifying side effect of the illusion pill forced him to submit to the ninjas. Chapter 133. In order to get more fantasy elixir, Lin Zhe, you will become my sacrifice. He stood there proudly and did not put Lin Chin in his eyes. Maybe the fantasy elixir gave him the right to be arrogant and made him forget himself. Let's begin, Lin Zhe said lightly. Although he felt that Ling Fifan was not bad, he did not have much expectation. After all, Ling Fifan's footsteps were weak, which meant that his realm was not stable enough. It would not be easy for such a martial artist to take more than 100 moves from Lin Chin. Yes, General. Ling Fifan revealed an excited smile because the first step of his plan was successful. Next, he just needed to take more than 100 moves. Facing Lin Chin, Ling Fifan did not choose to defend but chose to attack directly. Sky Demon Spear. This was a rare martial art of the Ling family that Ling Fifan learned when he was training outside. This spear technique was very powerful and strange. It was a sudden attack that ordinary martial artists could not guard against. In addition, Ling Fifan's speed was also very fast. The movement technique that he used should be a top movement technique of the Ling family. Together with the Sky Demon Spear, he arrived in front of Lin Chin in an instant. Lose! Ling Fifan shouted. His long spear was like a dragon piercing through the sky. His body was like a ghost. The tip of the spear shook and it seemed to turn into countless spears. So powerful! Is this the #1 martial artist of the Ling family's younger generation? This spear technique is really powerful. It would be great if he could defeat Lin Chin. It could be considered as bringing honor to the martial artists of Tianfeng City. There were many young martial artists at the scene. Many of them knew Ling Fifan, one of the 4 young masters of Tianfeng City. They felt that Ling Fifan's performance was very exciting. However, Lin Zhe, who was sitting in the referee's seat, looked calm. No one knew what he was thinking. But one thing was for sure, he was not satisfied with Ling Fifan's performance. Indeed, Ling Fifan's performance was definitely top-notch in Tianfeng City except for a few people. It was a pity that Tianfeng City had strange talents like Ling Xiao and Ling Yixue. Lin Chin, who was facing Ling Fifan, was a young warrior who had been personally taught by Lin Zhe. In the face of Ling Fifan's spear skill, Lin Chin was neither sad nor happy. He didn't seem to be afraid at all. He just stepped back a little, and then suddenly pulled out the waist knife that he had never pulled out. Boom! The saber and spear collided fiercely in the air. Lin Chin took 2 steps back, but Ling Fifan actually took more than 10 steps back before he could stand firm. Ling Fifan was shocked by this scene. One had to know that he was the one who initiated the attack. Logically speaking, this attack should be a huge advantage for him. However, the final result was actually like this. Didn't this mean that Lin Chin was much stronger than him? Unwilling to admit defeat, Ling Fifan launched another attack. Lin Chin had been on the defensive all this time and did not attack. After all, Ling Fifan was not a weakling. It was impossible for him to defeat Ling Fifan in 3 moves like he did with other warriors. However, After adapting to Ling Fifin's fierce spear art, he was still able to fight. On the 53rd move, Lin Chin finally launched a counterattack. The seemingly ordinary saber directly hit Ling Fifin's spear. Ling Fifin's body shook violently. At that moment, he couldn't even hold his weapon and was directly kicked out by Lin Chin. "Sigh, young man. Go back and consolidate your cultivation. Although you have reached the peak of the 6th level of the martial vein, if you really fight, you might not even be able to defeat a warrior at the early stage of the 6th level." Lin Zhe was really disappointed. The so-called Tianfeng cities for young masters was actually such a piece of material. It was too despairing. Tianfeng City is just a small city. What kind of geniuses can there be? General, you think too highly of these people. Suddenly, a very discordant voice sounded. "Wanren Wang." Lin Zhe looked at this person. His face was a little ugly. He said coldly, "Wanren Wang, you are only sent by the governor to help me burn the fantasy pill. Although Tianfeng City is small, there are still geniuses. It's just that I, Lin Zhe, did not have the chance to meet them. Don't talk nonsense." "Ha ha ha, General Lin, you think too highly of these trash. I'll say it here today. If anyone can smoothly take 100 moves from me, Wanren Wang, I will kneel down and kowtow to apologize to him." Wanren Wang's strength was not too strong. He was about the same as Lin Chin. However, Wanren Wang was a disciple of Sky Ninja Academy. Lin Chan belonged to the border general's residence. "General, can you give me another chance?" Ling Fifin suddenly said. "Forget it. I've said before that your foundation is not stable. You must have used some method to forcefully increase your cultivation. Go back and consolidate your cultivation." Lin Zhe was more patient and did not want to give Ling Fifin too much of a blow. "General Lin, what's wrong with giving him another chance? Are you afraid that Lin Chin will lose?" Wanren Wang said with a smile. Although his strength was not as strong as Lin Zhe, it could even be said that he was far behind. However, his status was not low. This time, he came to the Longmen Harbor on behalf of the governor of Baiyun Citadel, Wan Ben. He was confident that Lin Zhe would not dare to touch him. That was why he was so presumptuous. "General Lin, if you don't let me try again, that would be unfair. I just underestimated you and did not use my true strength," Ling Fifin said loudly. Lin Zhe frowned. He had started to hate this young man, called Ling Fifin, from his disappointment. In a real battle, underestimating the enemy meant death. Did he have the chance to say that he wanted to try again? It was stupid, to be honest. "Lin Chin, let him see what a real battle is." Lin Zhe did not object to Ling Fifin's request. He gave Lin Chin an order. Although Lin Chin was a peak-level 6 martial pulse martial artist, which was not considered high, he had fought on the battlefield. If he used his true strength, Ling Fifin would not be able to withstand it. However, Ling Fifin did not know that. He only knew that he had entered the 4th floor of the Ling family's library and learned some of the profound meaning of the extraordinary martial arts. Although it was just a superficial knowledge, he felt that it was more powerful than any of the top martial arts that he had cultivated. As long as he used it, Lin Chan would definitely lose. "Yes, sir." Lin Chin cupped his hands and sighed. Ling Fifin did not know what was good for him. What was Lin Zhe's judgment? Could he not see how strong you are? He had made up his mind. He would give Ling Fifin a chance to attack and then defeat him with lightning speed. He would teach this young man a lesson. Whether he could break out of his cocoon and be reborn in the future would depend on his comprehension. "Make your move." Lin Chin said to Ling Fifin, "Let me make the first move. You will regret it." Ling Fifin was worried that he would not be able to use his move when the opponent attacked. After all, the profound meaning of the extraordinary martial arts required a special state. It would take more time. Now that the opponent had given him the chance, he would not reject it. At that moment, he closed his eyes and his earth energy began to change strangely. This kind of change made Lin Qin and Myriad Renwang somewhat interested. Only Lin Zhe was still expressionless. No one could tell what he was thinking. Chapter 134. Ling Fifin's movement entered a very mysterious state. This spear had a feeling of almost perfect integration with the surrounding environment. But it was still a bit lacking. Clang! Ling Fifin's body was surrounded by a strong wind. The long spear was pointed at Lin Chen's direction, forming a natural force. This was not only Gang Qi, but more like the integration of Gang Qi and the natural force. This was the characteristic of extraordinary martial arts. However, Ling Fifin's mastery was too poor. In the process of integration, it instantly left the perfect state. Flying snow spear! The stone tablet that Ling Fifin comprehended that day was the same one that Ling Xiao comprehended. Although the effects were different today, the profound was still the same. Clang! The spear thrust out. The power was clearly much stronger than the previous spear technique. Few people under the martial master realm would dare to take this spear head-on. Good. What kind of move is this? Why do I feel that it is more terrifying than the top martial arts? Could this be the legendary, transcendent martial arts? No, it should be a remnant profound. The real extraordinary martial arts are much more terrifying than this. Ling Fifin's spear attack shocked many warriors. They were surprised that Ling Fifin had such a high comprehension at such a young age. It was known that many senior warriors could not comprehend anything, even if they had the remnant profound of extraordinary martial arts. Those who could comprehend half a move from the remnant profound could be called geniuses. But who was Lin Qin? He was a young warrior, cultivated by Lin Zhe. Although he was only at the peak of the 6th level of the martial pulse realm, he had not reached the martial master realm. He had not even reached the level of half-step martial master, but his fighting skills were superb. He did not retreat, but went forward and directly chopped with his saber. He did not use much Gang Qi, but this saber hit the weak point of Ling Fifin's move. Ling Fifin, who was originally in high spirits, was forced back by the counterforce. Then he was ruthlessly kicked out of the ring by Lin Qin. You are using a move from the remnant profound of extraordinary martial arts, right? Lin Zhe looked at Ling Fifin coldly and said, Young man, you haven't fully grasped the top-level martial arts, but you are biting off more than you can chew. I'm afraid that the power of this move is not even comparable to the top-level martial arts of the rare level. If you can cultivate a top-notch entry-level martial art to the transformation realm, it will be better than wasting your time on this. This move seems powerful, but in fact, it is extremely stupid. This time, Lin Zhe didn't give face to Ling Fifin because he didn't want to bite off more than he could chew and ruin this young man. He hoped that Ling Fifin could practice in a down-to-earth manner. After all, in his opinion, Ling Fifin was still talented. As long as he worked hard, it was not impossible for him to become a martial master in the future. This cold and emotionless voice made all the martial artists present lower their heads. They truly understood what the gap between them was. One of Sky Peak City's 4 young masters was actually unable to withstand a single blow in front of a martial artist of the same cultivation realm. This was impossible. Ling Fifin blankly lay on the ground and even forgot to stand up. He could not believe that the moves he was so proud of were worthless in front of that young man. What was going on? Ha ha ha. Tianfeng City's 4 young masters? In my opinion, they are just 4 insects. The king of 10,000 people laughed heartily. This person didn't help Lin Zhe, nor did he help Tianfeng City. This guy was purely here to cause trouble. No matter who was going to make a fool of themselves, he would be happy to watch the show. Not necessarily. Suddenly, a voice came from the crowd. It was Wang Zue, who was lucky enough to survive. The Wang family was directly annihilated by Fei Mu, but Fei Mu was only one person after all. It was impossible for him to kill everyone, so there were still some who managed to escape. Among them was Wang Zue, who was protected by the Wang family. After all, in the Wang family, only Wang Zue was most likely to avenge the Wang family. Wang Zue also thought so. However, what surprised him was that there was actually an unconfirmed news from the Ling family of Tianfeng City. Fei Mu was killed by Ling Xiao and Ling Yixue. Although there was some enmity between him and Ling Xiao and Ling Yixue, there wasn't any deep hatred between them. Therefore, he absolutely respected the two of them. "Oh, you think you can?" The king of 10,000 people sneered. "I can't." Wang Zue shook his head and said, "But you guys probably haven't heard that in this year's Tianfeng Grand Festival, there was a young man called Ling Xiao who defeated everyone and got first place." Ling Xiao. When Lin Zhe heard this name, he couldn't help but look at Lin Qin. "I don't know. The Tianfeng Grand Festival might be a big event in Tianfeng City, but there aren't many people in Baiyun capital who know about it." Lin Qin smiled bitterly. "What a pity. Can't the talents of Tianfeng City be used by me, Lin Zhe?" Lin Zhe sighed and stood up, preparing to leave. Some things couldn't be forced. He wouldn't be like the Sky Ninja Academy, who went to other people's homes to snatch people. "Ha ha ha. That Ling Xiao you're talking about is probably just a scoundrel. Otherwise, why wouldn't he dare to come out and show his skills?" The king of 10,000 people laughed. "To deal with you, there's no need for Ling Xiao." Suddenly, a white-clothed girl flew onto the stage. Lin Zhe suddenly stopped in his tracks, because he felt the unique aura coming from the white-clothed girl. Very strong, very confident. "Who are you?" The king of 10,000 people asked. "Ling Yixue." The girl replied. Then she looked at Lin Zhe and bowed. "General Lin, if I defeat that person, can I also join the border guarding general's residence?" She was obviously referring to the king of 10,000 people. Although she could also defeat Lin Qin, she wanted to teach the king of 10,000 people a lesson. "Ha ha ha, of course." Lin Zhe laughed happily. The king of 10,000 people and Lin Chen's strength were on par. If she could defeat the king of 10,000 people, she would definitely be able to defeat Lin Qin. Of course, if she had to lose, Lin Zhe still hoped that the king of 10,000 people would go up and be the sucker. "Miss, don't be so arrogant." The king of 10,000 people landed on the stage, and Lin Qin naturally retreated to the side. At this time, Ling Yixue had also learned some techniques to conceal her aura, so one couldn't tell that she was a martial master from the surface. Because of this, the king of 10,000 people had no scruples. In his opinion, there was no one in Tianfeng City worthy of his attention. "Can we begin?" Ling Yixue looked at the king of 10,000 people indifferently and asked, "I'll let you have 3 moves first. In case you say I'm bullying the weak," the king of 10,000 people said disdainfully. Ling Yixue didn't say anything else, but suddenly raised her hand. Geocentric ice lotus bind. At that moment, the king of 10,000 people's body froze. Then, Ling Yixue just casually slapped with her palm, and the Iceman fell to the ground. If Lin Zhe hadn't intercepted at the critical moment, the king of 10,000 people would have died. "Miss, give me some face." Lin Zhe also wanted the king of 10,000 people to die, but once the king of 10,000 people died, he would completely fall out with the Baiyun provincial governor Wanben. At least for now, he didn't want to do that. Otherwise, the Baiyun province would fall into a catastrophe. "Senior sister, forget it. Killing that kind of trash is useless. Don't dirty your hands." A young man's voice came from the crowd. He was only 14 years old this year, but his height was no shorter than an adult's. Plus, he had a mature and steady temperament. It was really hard to associate him with a child. Chapter 135. "I'll listen to you." Ling Yixue stepped aside. Good job." Lin Zhe looked at Ling Yixue and praised. "You are so powerful at such a young age. If you can join the border general's mansion, it will be my honor." "General, you are flattering me." If my junior brother joins, I will join, Ling Yixue said lightly. At this moment, everyone's eyes were on Ling Xiao. There were jealousy, admiration, and envy in their eyes. Ling Yixue was like an ice fairy, yet she was so obedient to someone. How could people not be envious of her? There was a pair of vicious eyes in the crowd. Those eyes belonged to Ling Fifan. In fact, there was no deep hatred between him and Ling Xiao. It was just that he used to pursue Ling Yixue. Now that he saw Ling Yixue's attitude towards Ling Xiao, how could he not see it? His heart was burning with anger. It was as if he was going to explode. He gritted his teeth and touched the dream elixir on his waist. It was a special dream elixir that he got from the ninja clan. It could make a martial artist go crazy for a short time. He was not afraid of pain, and his strength would increase tremendously. He didn't want to use it. After all, he would lose his mind after using it. He didn't know what he would do, but he decided to use it now. If Ling Xiao passed Lin Zai's test, he would defeat Ling Xiao and make Ling Xiao lose face. He slowly got up from the ground and retreated into the crowd. He didn't want Ling Xiao and Ling Yixue to see him. "Little brother, are you the junior brother of this lady?" Lin Zai asked with a smile. "Greetings, General Lin. I have heard of your name since I was young. It is my honor to meet you in person." Ling Xiao didn't know how to flatter. He was telling the truth. Lin Zai was qualified to make him say such things. In fact, no matter how powerful Lin Zai was, he was someone that Ling Xiao admired a lot. "You have seen me before?" Lin Zai didn't like people who flattered him, so he had a bad impression of Ling Xiao. "General, perhaps you don't remember, but many years ago, there was a little beggar on the streets of Tianfeng City who was almost killed by a galloping carriage. It was all thanks to you that the little beggar was saved by throwing the carriage to the side." Ling Xiao didn't know what Lin Zai was thinking. He was just expressing his excitement. "That little beggar can't be you, right?" Lin Zai exclaimed. "That's me," Ling Xiao said with some pride. "Since that day, I have wanted to follow General Lin to the battlefield and resist the foreign races. Today, I finally have the opportunity. Are you confident that you can survive 100 moves from Lin Qin?" Lin Zai was very curious. This young man's aura was only at the peak of the 5th level of the martial vein. Where did his confidence come from? Was he another pretentious person? This was mainly because Ling Zhao's Mountain River martial spirits model was too effective. Even an expert like Lin Zai couldn't see through his cultivation. That's not it. Ling Xiao smiled and shook his head. "Little brother, you want to follow your senior sister into the border guarding general's estate, right? Fine, your senior sister is a genius. I can break this rule for her." Lin Zai wasn't a stubborn old man. If he could take Ling Yixue into the border guarding general's estate, so what if he had to deal with Ling Xiao? "I'm going to kill you." Just as Ling Xiao was about to speak again, the king of 10,000 human had already escaped from the ice. He angrily roared at Ling Yixue. "General, you seem to have misunderstood me. I mean, just like senior sister, I don't want to fight with brother Lin Qin. I just want to teach that king of 10,000 human a lesson. Otherwise, people will say that our Tianfeng city has no one." Ling Xiao took the opportunity to say. When he said this, Lin Zai was shocked. If Ling Yixue could defeat the king of 10,000 human, he could still accept it. After all, when Ling Yixue went up on stage, he saw how powerful this girl was. But Ling Xiao, to be honest, he really didn't see anything special about him. "Little brother, no matter what you do, you have to know your limits." Lin Zai smiled bitterly. He thought that Ling Xiao was trying to be strong. "General Lin, junior brother isn't weaker than me," Ling Yixue said. "Oh." Lin Zai couldn't help but look shocked. For Ling Yixue to say this, it shouldn't be fake. "All right then. You haven't said your name yet." "I'm Ling Xiao." "Ah, he's Ling Xiao. The Ling Xiao who defeated Li Xinghui? I've only heard of him, but I've never seen him. I didn't expect him to be so young." It can't be wrong. I saw him fight with my own eyes that day. His 9 transformation, golden body technique, and double shadow sword technique are both terrifying. After Ling Xiao introduced himself, the audience finally confirmed his identity. Although some people felt that he looked like Ling Xiao, they didn't dare to confirm it. So you're Ling Xiao, the leader of Tianfeng City's 4 young masters? All right, then I'll kill you first, then deal with that woman. When Myriad King heard Ling Xiao's name, he was also excited. Hee, since the 2 of you are willing to exchange blows, then give it a try. Lin Zhe smiled. He finally changed his opinion of Ling Xiao completely. If Ling Xiao's calmness wasn't faked, then this young man was too terrifying. Facing a martial artist at the peak of the 9th level of the martial vein, he didn't have the slightest bit of fear or cowardice. He still acted so calm and experienced. Just this temperament alone was much stronger than many people, including many outstanding talents in the Border General's residence. They were far from being able to compare to this child. On the stage, Ling Xiao and Myriad King stood on each side. You just said that there's no one in Tianfeng City? Ling Xiao asked. That's right, Myriad King answered. You said that Tianfeng City's martial artists are all trash. That's right, I said that too. Then why did you lose to senior apprentice sister, Yishui? Ling Xiao asked coldly. That was just an accident. I underestimated my opponent and didn't use my true ability, Myriad King said again. Really shameless. Our Tianfeng City's martial artists are trash when they lose. You lost because you underestimated your opponent? Ling Xiao said with a cold smile. All right, then I'll give you a chance to use your true ability. What if you lose to me again? Lose to you? Impossible. Myriad King laughed loudly. What if I lose? If I lose, I'll apologize to all the martial artists in Tianfeng City in public. Myriad King said confidently. All right, I hope you can keep your promise. Ling Xiao smiled faintly, then got into a stance. Barbaric Bull's strength. Facing Myriad King, Ling Xiao didn't even use high-grade martial arts, but used the most ordinary basic martial arts. Looking down on me, Myriad King was enraged. The martial artists watching the show below the stage were also stunned. They didn't think that Ling Xiao would actually underestimate his opponent so much. Actually, did Ling Xiao underestimate his opponent? Not at all. Barbaric Bull strength. This basic martial art, he had already cultivated it to perfection long ago. Its power was comparable to high-grade martial arts at large success stage, and coupled with Ox demon skill, this basic martial arts power was comparable to high-grade martial arts at great perfection stage. The scariest thing wasn't this. The scariest thing was that Ling Xiao comprehended the way to use soul force from the horrifying finger. So he applied this soul force to the transformation of Barbaric Bull strength. Barbaric Bull strength was a martial art without fixed moves to begin with. Chapter 136. It could be said that today's Barbaric Bull strength had already broken free from the shackles of basic martial arts. It had even surpassed the realm of perfection and entered a realm that no one had ever come into contact with. Ling Xiao named this realm Spirit Realm. As the name suggested, it was the realm of integrating soul power. Its power had already surpassed the high-level martial arts and was comparable to the entry-level top martial arts. Seeing this scene, Lin Zhe let out a cry of surprise. He really did not expect that Ling Xiao's understanding of martial arts had reached such a level. One must know that since ancient times, there were very few who could cultivate martial arts to the realm of perfection. Entering this realm that had never been seen before was something he had never heard of. This child's ability to comprehend was simply too astonishing. Although surprised, Lin Zhe did not say anything. After all, the realm was one thing, but the power was another. He really wanted to see what kind of effect this seemingly casual punch of Ling Xiao's could achieve. Moo! The Barbaric Bull let out a roar. Ling Zhao's entire body was wrapped in the barbaric bull formed by the Gangqi as he charged towards King of 10,000 people. King of 10,000 people could not help but sneer. Ling Zhao, you think too highly of yourself. You actually want to create your own martial arts? Even a martial master might not dare to do so. Although he could see that Ling Zhao's punch was special, he did not take it to heart. But because of the lesson of losing to Ling Yixue, he still subconsciously put up a defense. Waving his fists, a shield made of Gangqi appeared in front of him. King Kong shield. That should be a rare realm top martial arts, and a pure defense martial arts. How can a basic martial arts break through the defense? This was the real thought in the hearts of almost all the martial artists who were watching this battle. Ling Fifan also snorted disdainfully. Idiot! Do you think this is the Ling family? You want to rely on basic martial arts to dominate? Bang! Ling Zhao's fists landed on the King Kong shield. As expected, he could not move an inch. Beautiful! To everyone's astonishment, a cheer suddenly exploded near the ring. The spectators wanted to scold who was the idiot. How could this be a good cheer? How could this be called beautiful? But when they looked in that direction, they were dumbfounded. That was because the person who shouted that was none other than Lin Zhe. At this moment, everyone swallowed the words that were about to come out of their mouths. But they still did not understand. This move had clearly been blocked by Myriad Human King. So why did Lin Zhe say it was good? He couldn't have said that to the king of 10,000 men, right? Lin Zhe didn't have such a good relationship with the king of 10,000 people. Puff! Just as everyone was puzzled, Wanren Wang suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. His entire person instantly became dispirited and listless. What's going on? The sudden appearance of this scene caused the martial artists with poor eyesight to be dumbfounded once again. General, please forgive this subordinate's stupidity. What happened just now? Could it be that the king of 10,000 people was injured by Ling Yixue? Lin Chen asked in confusion. Don't you feel it? The most terrifying part of Ling Zhao's punch was its attack on the soul. Lin Zhe said with a smile, Talent, truly a talent. Little brother, looks like this general had eyes but failed to recognize gold and jade. Your talent far surpasses anyone present, including this general. This evaluation was really too high. One had to know. Lin Zhe broke through to the 9th level martial vein around the age of 30, unlocking 9 martial veins. He said that Ling Zhao's talent was even better than his. Didn't that mean that Ling Zhao would definitely be able to break through to the 9th level martial vein before the age of 30? General's wrong love. Ling Zhao clasped his hands and said with a smile, the attack on the king of 10,000 people this time was merely his first attempt. Honestly speaking, he really didn't think that the king of 10,000 people would be so weak, being beaten up by him to vomit blood in one move. He still had many moves that he had yet to display. For example, fusing the soul attack into the fallen star fist, fusing it into the double shadow sword art. Another example was that his martial soul had yet to be displayed. It ended just like that? No, what wrong, love? This general has never spoken empty words. You are indeed the most talented martial arts prodigy I have ever seen. Lin Zhe walked over excitedly, reaching out his hand and patting Ling Zhao's shoulder. He's a prodigy? Then what am I? Although the king of 10,000 people vomited blood, his injuries weren't considered serious. After all, he was a martial artist at the peak of the 6th level martial vein. Although his soul was injured and it was very uncomfortable at this moment because of his anger, he actually temporarily forgot the pain on his soul. This general is Lin Zhe. If you are willing to join the border guarding general's residence, we will treat you as friends. Lin Zhe said to Ling Zhao with a smile. That attitude was completely like talking to an old friend that he hadn't seen for many years. When this sentence was said, it once again shocked all the martial artists present. General, this isn't too good, is it? Lin Chin was also a little jealous. After all, he had followed Lin Zhe for a very long time. At most, he was treated as a disciple by Lin Zhe. However, they had only met once, and Lin Zhe actually wanted to treat Ling Xiao as a friend. It would be strange if he wasn't jealous. Lin Chin, you understand me. Do you still need me to explain some things? Lin Zhe only glanced at Lin Chin and said indifferently. However, this sentence was like the evening drum and morning bell, instantly waking Lin Chin up. Although Ling Xiao was young, his talent was astonishing. Sooner or later, he would shock the Baiyun province, Northern Han, and even the human race's sacred dynasty. What was wrong with making friends with such a person? Although Lin Zhe was a high and mighty general and a master at the peak of the 9th level martial vein, he looked at problems from the perspective of development. He could see Ling Xiao's terrifying future. I am indebted to the general's great favor. Ling Xiao does not dare to accept it. Ling Xiao was still self-aware. Although his potential wasn't bad, potential was still just potential. Before it turned into strength, he couldn't be too arrogant. There's nothing to be afraid of. From now on, you, Ling Xiao, are my friend. If anyone dares to touch you, then they are going against me. Lin Zhe patted Ling Xiao's back twice and laughed loudly. He was really happy. After searching for many years, he still couldn't find a suitable successor. Now that he finally met one, how could he not be happy? Well, since it's like this, Ling Xiao won't refuse anymore. The first time was modesty, the second time was a bit disrespectful. Lin Zhe, a peak 9th level martial vein martial artist, was willing to be friends with you and you were not willing? If this spread out, Lin Zhe would lose face. Besides, Ling Xiao was sincerely willing to be friends with Lin Zhe because he had always admired this general. Junior brother, it seems that we came to the Dragon Gate harbor right this time. Ling Yixue revealed a smile more beautiful than plum blossoms in winter, which almost made the young martial artists dizzy. Seeing Ling Yixue's smile and Lin Zhe's attitude towards Ling Xiao, Ling Fifan simply couldn't bear it. On the stage, King of 10,000 people was also gnashing his teeth. By the way, Ling Xiao, I haven't officially invited you to join the border guarding general's mansion. Are you willing? In fact, Lin Zhe didn't need to ask this question, because he was the border guarding general. He was a peak 9th level martial vein martial artist. He didn't need to give Ling Xiao face, but he asked. Chapter 137. Ling Xiao is willing to go. In fact, there was nothing to hesitate about. In the White Cloud capital, the only place that could contend against the Heavenly Ninja Academy was the border general's estate. Furthermore, he had always respected Lin Zhe. Being able to follow Lin Zhe to the White Cloud capital could be considered as fulfilling his childhood wish. Furthermore, the White Cloud capital was his next destination. Although he didn't need to pass through the Dragon Submission mountain range, the journey was long. With Lin Zhe around, even if he encountered any trouble, it should be easily resolved. Good. Brother Ling Xiao, on this trip to the border general's estate, you will see many cultivators whose talent isn't inferior to yours. However, I still think that your temperament and comprehension of martial arts are better than anyone else's. Lin Zhe said with a smile, as long as you work hard enough, there will be a day when you can step onto the peak of the 9th layer martial vein. Furthermore, there will be martial masters teaching you martial arts. It's completely different from staying in the Ling family. A martial master expert personally instructing him? This surprised Ling Xiao. He had been in the Ling family for so long, but he had never been instructed in cultivation by anyone. He had always been self-taught. He believed that with the guidance of a martial master expert, it would be much easier to comprehend many things. Although he was a little excited, it wasn't to the point where he lost control of his emotions. However, the surrounding people were extremely envious. One had to know that the border General Lin Zhe was an expert on the same level as the governor of the White Cloud capital, Wenben. Even their authority was similar. However, The difference was that Lin Zhe was a martial general. He had many more experts under him than Wan Ben. In the entire White Cloud province, or even the entire northern Han, Lin Zhe was a legendary war god among cultivators. To be able to cultivate with such a person, how bright would one's future be? It was equivalent to stepping onto a brand new high platform. It could even be said that he was a carp leaping over the Dragon Gate. Perhaps he would soar into the sky soon. How could people not be envious? However, envy was just envy. Most cultivators understood that Ling Xiao had the qualifications. There were still many people who hadn't seen the Sky Peak Grand Assembly, so they weren't clear about Ling Xiao's strength. However, today's battle between Ling Xiao and the king of 10,000 people made them see the difference. They didn't even know how Ling Xiao had defeated the king of 10,000 people. Of course, there were also people who were unhappy. It could even be said that they were mad with jealousy. That man was Ling Fifan. Ling Fifan was very unhappy because Ling Xiao not only took away his title as the #1 disciple of the Ling family, but also took away his most beloved woman. Of course, this was only what he thought. In actuality, he had always been inferior to Ling Qin. Ling Yixue had never been nice to him either. Ling Fifan was just pretentious. He always felt that Ling Yixue should belong to him. He just couldn't let Ling Yixue and Ling Xiao be together. He clenched the illusion pill in his hand and jumped onto the stage. General Lin, this man is despicable and shameless. He stole my woman. Ling Fifan said loudly, "You're finally willing to jump out." Ling Xiao looked at Ling Fifan indifferently and said, "That day when the Ling family suffered a great calamity, you were hiding outside. How dare you appear in front of me and Yixue? You are really shameless." I wasn't in Tianfeng City that day, so I didn't know about the situation. Ling Fifan said, "Nonsense." Wang Zai stood up and shouted loudly, "Ling Fifan, others don't know, but I know that you were in Tianfeng City that day. When you saw the Ling family was surrounded, you ran faster than me. I am ashamed, but you are more shameless. Wang Zai, you have to pay the price for talking nonsense." Ling Fifan stared at Wang Zai and said, "Don't scare me. My Wang family is almost destroyed by the ninja clan. My Wang family is the most useless one, so I can't take revenge. However, Ling Xiao and Ling Yixue helped me to take revenge. I am timid, but I am not as shameless as you." Wang Zai went all out today and confronted Ling Fifan loudly. "Ling Fifan, you said that junior brother took away your love. How ridiculous. When did I, Ling Yixue, admit that I am your woman? You are really conceited," Ling Yixue said at this time. Her words made Ling Fifan's face turn red. "You shameless asterisk, 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 asterisk," Ling Fifan roared. "You are courting death." Ling Yixue was no longer the Ling Yixue of the past. When she was in the Ling family, Ling Fifan was rude to her. Although she was angry, there was nothing she could do. But today, Ling Fifan still dared to do that. He was courting death. A white shadow flashed by. Ling Yixue grabbed Ling Fifan with one hand. Her beautiful hands were covered with a dense cold air. "Senior sister, leave it to me," Ling Xiao said lightly. He did not want Ling Yixue to take action, because every time Ling Yixue took action, her body would feel uncomfortable. It was naturally because of the soul force that did not belong to Ling Yixue in her mind. Fine. Ling Yixue naturally knew Ling Xiao's consideration. She did not want to cause trouble for Ling Xiao, so she directly threw Ling Fifan on the stage and turned around and retreated to the side. Ling Fifan did not say anything. His purpose was to fight with Ling Xiao and then defeat Ling Xiao with the help of the illusion pill. He wanted to embarrass Ling Xiao. Now that Ling Xiao had agreed to take action, it was unnecessary to talk nonsense. Unexpectedly at this moment, Wan Human King also jumped onto the stage. "Ling Xiao, I was injured by Ling Yixue just now. That's why I vomited blood. Don't think that it's because you're powerful. Before you fight with him, fight with me again. Hee hee, you're really shameless. I forgot that you said that you want to apologize to the martial artists of Tianfeng City. Ling Xiao looked at Wan Human King. Through this person, he could almost know what kind of character Governor Wan Ben was. If the subordinates that he sent were so shameless, then Wan Ben was probably not a good person. Apologize? I wasn't defeated by you. What's there to apologize for? Wan Human King laughed. You mean that your injuries are healed now? Ling Xiao asked with a smile. That's right. Then, if you lose this time, there won't be any other excuses. Absolutely not. Wan Human King also had a trump card. The reason why he dared to challenge Ling Xiao again was because he wanted to use his trump card. As for his so-called trump card, it was merely a broken martial soul that had been condensed to 20%. Of course, this was indeed very strong, provided that the opponent didn't have a martial spirit. Unfortunately, he really didn't know that Ling Xiao had a martial spirit, and currently, he had 3 martial spirits: Mountain River martial spirit, Cherry Tree martial spirit, and Dark Cloud martial spirit. All right, since that's the case, the two of you can come at me together. Ling Xiao took a deep breath. He felt that he was a little soft previously. This time he might as well beat the two of them until they couldn't fight back. The two of them together? This Ling Xiao is a little too arrogant. Yeah, Wan Human King and Ling Fifan are both martial artists at the peak of the 6th level of the martial vein. He's only at the peak of the 5th level of the martial vein. How can he win? I don't think so. Ling Xiao doesn't seem like the kind of person who is arrogant. Let's wait and see. He probably has something special. Many people below the stage felt that Ling Xiao was a little too arrogant to fight Ling Fifan and Wan Human King alone. However, there were still people who were full of confidence in Ling Xiao. For example, Wang Zuozue. Chapter 138. General, aren't you going to stop him? Lin Chen asked worriedly. Ha ha ha, Lin Chen. I've told you before that there are talents in every generation, and each generation is stronger than the previous. Although Tianfeng City is a small place, it has given me a big surprise. Lin Zhe laughed and said, I'm afraid this Ling Xiao is not as simple as he looks. Learn more from him. Yes, General. Despite what he said, Lin Chen was still a little unconvinced, because Ling Xiao defeating Wanren Wang was too strange. He always thought that Ling Xiao was the one who injured Wanren Wang, and Ling Xiao was the one who took advantage of it. However, if Ling Xiao could really defeat Wan Renwang and Ling Fifan, he would be impressed. In the arena, Wan Renwang and Ling Fifan stood on one side. Ling Xiao stood on the other side. Although Wan Renwang was arrogant, he did not object to teaming up with Ling Fifan. He knew that he might not be able to defeat Ling Xiao easily. With Ling Fifan's help, it would be easier to win. As for Ling Fifan, he did not care how many people he teamed up with. His goal today was to kill Ling Xiao. Only when Ling Xiao was dead could the jealousy and hatred in his heart be dispelled. Moreover, the ninjas had said that as long as he killed Ling Xiao, he could have as many fantasy pills as he wanted. How could he object to such a good thing? Ling Xiao, although I don't want to team up with others, since this is your request, I won't stand on ceremony. As soon as the king of 10,000 men finished speaking, his aura gushed out. His purple robe fluttered even though there was no wind. In that instant, a huge shadow appeared behind him. That's a broken martial soul? Yes, it looks like a strange martial soul. Why does it look like a ship? Yes, it looks like a broken ship. It's a ghost ship. That's right, Wan Renwang's broken martial soul was a ghost ship. In fact, the entire Wan family's martial spirit was the ghost ship. However, until now, only the patriarch Wan Ben had the complete ghost ship martial spirit. The rest of them were just remnant souls. Although the remnant soul was also a stage of the martial spirit, it really couldn't be compared to the perfect soul. It was only slightly stronger than ordinary martial artists. Compared to martial artists who possessed martial will, it didn't have much of an advantage. No wonder that attack didn't injure you severely. It turns out that you have a broken martial spirit. Ling Xiao now understood that even if it was a broken martial spirit, it could still greatly increase the strength of the soul. No wonder the barbaric bull's strength had only injured the king of 10,000 people, and it was only a light injury. Originally, the audience was a little worried that Ling Xiao would fight 1 against 2. The king of 10,000 people's display of the ghost ship's remnant soul made them even more worried. After all, the king of 10,000 people was a genius of White Cloud Prefecture. King of 10,000 men's ghost ship's remnant soul has reached 20%. Looks like I'll have to work harder. Lin Chen also had a broken martial spirit. Although there weren't many people in the human sacred dynasty who had a broken martial spirit, in a big place like the White Cloud capital, there would definitely be some. However, a broken martial spirit was still a broken martial spirit. Some people could cultivate a broken martial spirit to 99%, but they couldn't cultivate it to the perfect soul. Without reaching the perfect soul, a broken martial spirit couldn't be officially called a martial spirit. This was a very cruel thing, but it was also normal. After all, there were only a few people in the human race who had a martial spirit. They were as rare as phoenix feathers and Qilin horns. If they could all cultivate it to the perfect soul, then the human race wouldn't be so passive as they were now. On the field, the king of 10,000 people had already launched his attack. Ghost ship crossing. This was a martial arts move that matched the ghost ship's remnant soul. And it was a top-notch martial arts move. The king of 10,000 people roared and pushed his hands forward. Suddenly, the ghost ship's shadow behind him soared through the air, as if it was riding the wind and breaking the waves, rushing towards Ling Xiao. As the ghost ship flew, one could faintly hear a ghostly voice, which made one's hair stand on end. This move didn't need to get close to Ling Xiao. It could attack from about 10 meters away. The power was no different from getting close. Meteor Fist. Ling Xiao didn't have any intention of using his martial spirit. Facing the king of 10,000 people, he didn't see the need to use his martial spirit. However, when he used the Meteor Fist, his body underwent some changes. A huge ice demon shell enveloped his body, and that Meteor Fist also became incomparably huge. The originally fiery red meteor turned into a silver-white, icy planet. Bang! The fist landed on the ghost ship. Suddenly, a strong wind shot out. The martial artists near the ring were caught off guard. A few of them were injured by the strong wind and had no choice but to retreat hastily. Whoosh! The ghost ship shattered. Ling Xiao stood proudly. However, the king of 10,000 people actually took a step back, his face pale. Although he didn't get close to Ling Xiao, the ghost ship was his broken martial spirit. When the ghost ship was destroyed in that instant, he was naturally injured too. This scene caused Lin Chen to be extremely shocked. It caused everyone below the stage to cry out in shock. That punch just now was only a high-level martial art, right? But its power is probably not inferior to a top-notch martial art. Nonsense. To be able to shatter a broken martial spirit, its power is definitely not weaker than a top-notch martial art. How is this possible? He's only at the peak of the 5th level of the martial vein. Even if he's challenging someone of a higher level, it's impossible for him to be so powerful. I suspect that he's hiding his strength. Definitely, there were people below the stage who understood. Although Ling Xiao looked like he was at the peak of the 5th level of the martial vein, in reality, to easily defeat the king of 10,000 people's ghost ship, he really needed to use the early 6th level of the martial vein. Since he had been seen through, he might as well not hide anymore. In any case, his true cultivation was at the middle of the 6th level of the martial vein. His combat strength was already comparable to a half-step martial master. Even if he exposed his true cultivation, it wouldn't be a big deal. Bang! An aura exploded. Ling Xiao's aura suddenly rose, instantly rising from the peak of the 5th level of the martial vein to the middle of the 6th level of the martial vein. He really hid his strength, but how did he hide it? It was so secretive that I couldn't see it at all. Humph, he's the #1 genius of Tianfeng City. How can you compare to him? Let's watch the next battle. This is going to be interesting. This is impossible. Seeing his ghost ship being shattered, the king of 10,000 people was furious and in disbelief. With a roar, his aura condensed again, and the phantom of the ghost ship appeared again. Even if it was just a remnant soul, it wouldn't be destroyed so easily. The martial spirit could continue to condense until the martial artist's aura and soul force were exhausted. Of course, every time it condensed again, it would consume a huge amount of energy. Amidst the roar, the king of 10,000 people's aura continued to soar. Finally, he displayed all of his strength. He didn't believe that Ling Xiao could defeat him. Absolutely not. Ghost ship crossing. It was the ghost ship crossing again, but its power had more than doubled. The phantom of the ghost ship had also become more realistic. One could even see strange ghosts moving on the ghost ship. It could be said that once this move was executed, no cultivator below the half-step martial master level would be able to block it. Of course, Ling Xiao was an exception. Ghost Shadow Sword Technique Perfection. Chapter 139. Whoosh! Whoosh! The 4 figures finally merged into one and stabbed the ghost ship. An ear-piercing sound rang out in the arena. Then, people were surprised to find that the ghost ship was pierced through by the sword and collapsed in midair. Novels. La! Wan Renwang let out a blood-curdling scream. He finally spat out another mouthful of blood, and his face became even paler. Be careful! A reminder suddenly came from below the stage. It turned out that Ling Fifan had been waiting for an opportunity to launch his own attack. He did not hold back at all in his attack. He immediately used the flying snow spear, which was the profound meaning of the transcendent martial arts that he had comprehended from the stone tablet. Dai Ling Xiao! In mid-air, Ling Fifan swallowed the illusion pellet and his aura sword. The spear's shadow also suddenly increased by several meters. General, that Ling Fifan seems to have taken the fantasy pill. Should we stop him? It's very dangerous. Lin Chen looked at Lin Zhe and asked, There's no need to rush. Let's wait and see. If Ling Xiao is in danger, you can make a move. Lin Zhe shook his head. He didn't want to ruin this battle. Quick! Ling Xiao didn't even look at Ling Fifan. He just pointed his finger behind him, and a sword shadow broke through the air. Just how terrifying was that sword strike? The speed was so fast that it was almost impossible to see with the naked eye. Pucci! Ling Fifan's shoulder was penetrated by the flying sword. Wow! He spat out a mouthful of blood, but he didn't seem to be in any pain. He didn't even frown. Ling Xiao, this person has consumed a special illusion pill. He no longer feels pain. If you want to stop him, you have to cripple him. Lin Chen said loudly. Ling Xiao took a deep breath. Originally, he wanted to injure Ling Fifan for the sake of the Ling family, but now it seemed that he could only cripple Ling Fifan's martial arts. In any case, those who had taken the illusion pill would have their martial arts crippled sooner or later. They would have to start all over again. Thinking of this, the flying sword made a turn and left 4 bloody holes on Ling Fifan's body in an instant. Although Ling Fifan did not feel pain, his whole body was unable to move. He was lying there like a dead dog. Ghost ship explosion. While Ling Xiao was dealing with Ling Fifan, Myriad Human King had already recovered. His aura suddenly changed. His entire body was filled with the aura of terror and death. The phantom of the ghost ship condensed again, and this time it was different from the previous move. General! The king of 10,000 men is going all out. It's better to stop him. Regardless of whether he dies or Ling Xiao dies, it's not good. Lin Chen was a little anxious. Ling Xiao, restrain him. I know you can do it. Lin Zhe said. Although this was a little difficult, Lin Zhe had no other choice. Myriad Human King was Wan Ben's nephew. If he died, then the matter would be troublesome. He could not let anything happen to Ling Xiao. As a last resort, he would make a move. Don't worry, General. I know what to do. Ling Xiao did not plan to kill King of 10,000 men. What he wanted was the ghost ship's remnant soul. He felt that this ghost ship was quite interesting. He could borrow it and use it first. It could be considered a pretty good martial art. Shadow King Kill. Ling Xiao suddenly moved. This move, Shadow King Kill, was actually a new move that he comprehended after cultivating the multiple shadow sword technique to perfection. The 3 shadow clones merged with the original body. Not only was it faster and stronger, but it was also more hidden. The explosive power was simply terrifying. This could be considered the ultimate move of the multiple shadow sword technique. It was a shadow that was almost indistinguishable to the naked eye. If it was night, then nothing could be seen. There was no sound, no trajectory. It was just a flash. The shadow flashed, and the sword was already there. What? There's actually such a move in the multiple shadow sword technique? Lin Zhe also stood up in shock. Actually, the general's residence also had this sword technique, but it did not have this move. Could it be that he comprehended it himself? This is a move that only martial arts masters have. Lin Qin was also dumbfounded. He knew very well how difficult it was to cultivate the multiple shadow sword technique. All along, because this multiple shadow sword technique could be used to attack clones. It had always been a sword move that the disciples of the border guarding general's residence and Sky Enduring Academy liked very much. According to past records, this multiple shadow sword technique was not only powerful, but the trajectory of the moves could also be split and combined. It could be one-on-one or one against many. It was very flexible and easy to use. It could be said that it was almost invincible among the top martial arts. It was precisely because of so many benefits that there were naturally countless cultivators. However, it was a pity that although there were many geniuses in Baiyun province, no one had ever succeeded in cultivating it. Some people went berserk while cultivating. Some directly exploded and died. Some people were luckier and cultivated a clone, but could not fight. In the end, they could only choose to give up. Therefore, the multiple shadow sword technique went from a popular martial art to a martial art of little value that was shelved on the shelf. But who would have thought? In this small Tianfeng city, there was actually someone who cultivated it to perfection. Not only that, he even comprehended a sure-kill move from perfection. This sure-kill move was often only possible for martial arts masters to comprehend. This kid was really heaven-defying. While Lin Chen was in shock, Ling Xiao's attack already arrived in front of King of 10,000 people. A sword pierced into King of 10,000 people's body. King of 10,000 people's huge ghost ship phantom had yet to explode, and it already turned into nothingness. No one noticed that when Ling Xiao's sword pierced into King of 10,000 people's body, it also devoured King of 10,000 people's ghost ship remnant soul. Today, I'll spare your dog life. I hope you know how precious it is. Ling Xiao pulled out his sword and returned it to its sheath. There was actually not a trace of blood on it. Perhaps the sword was too fast. The blood did not even have time to stick to it. No. How could I lose? Where's my martial soul? What did you do to my martial soul? King of 10,000 people wanted to speak, but his throat could not make a sound at all. Ling Xiao's sword directly pierced through his body. His tongue was stuck with fresh blood. Although it was not to the extent of death, he could only be a mute for a while. Send young Master Wan for treatment. Lin Zhe stood up excitedly and laughed loudly. Ling Xiao, I didn't expect you to be more outstanding than I thought. You were able to comprehend a sure-kill move from the multiple shadows sword technique. This is more outstanding than many martial masters. Although after seeing Ling Xiao's attack, he was certain that Ling Xiao should be able to defeat the joint attack of King of 10,000 people and Ling Fifan. But to be honest, the battle was so easy that he did not expect it. He even felt that Ling Xiao should have some strength left that he had not used. As for how much strength he had left, he did not know. Ling Fifan knelt there. The viciousness in his eyes was gone, leaving only a dull look. Ling Xiao sighed and said to the Ling family martial artists who came with him, "Bring him back for treatment. He has taken the illusion elixir and must quit. Otherwise, his life will be over." "Yes, Grand Elder." The two of them were martial artists in the 5th level of the martial vein. They were very respectful in front of Ling Xiao. After cupping their fists, they left with Ling Fifan. "Grand Elder?" Lin Zhe asked curiously. "General, you must be joking. The Ling family suffered a catastrophe. Thanks to the young martial artists of Tianfeng City, we decided to abandon the family barrier and establish the Divine Sword Sect. I was forced to be the Grand Elder," Ling Xiao said with a wry smile. "Ha ha ha ha. You're so young, and you're already a Grand Elder. It seems that I didn't misjudge you. Your calm old face should have been recognized by all the martial artists of the Ling family." Lin Zhe laughed loudly. Chapter 140. Although the Dragon Gate selection only recruited 2 disciples in the end. However, Lin Zhe was very satisfied. Ling Yixue was only 16 years old and was already a martial master in the early 7th level of the martial vein. Ling Xiao was even more terrifying. He was only in the middle 6th level of the martial vein, but he could easily defeat 2 peak 6th level martial artists. More importantly, Ling Xiao's ability to comprehend martial arts surpassed many martial masters. He had integrated soul attacks into martial arts and created the spirit realm above the transformative realm. He had even comprehended the killing move of the multiple shadow sword art. He didn't look like a 14-year-old child at all. He was simply a martial arts monster. Lin Zhe was very glad that such a child hadn't been snatched away by the Heavenly Ninja Academy. Instead, he had recruited him to the Border General's residence. Regardless of whether it was for the child's future development for Northern Han or for the human race's sacred dynasty, it was extremely beneficial. After the Dragon Gate selection, Lin Zhe's matter with the Dragon Gate also came to an end. The matter of the Dragon Gate destroying the illusion pills was still brewing. He believed that the ninjas wouldn't let this matter rest. However, Lin Zhe wouldn't let this matter rest either. The Dragon Gate was just the beginning. The destruction of the illusion pills had already become a huge problem for the sacred dynasty. The illusion pills caused a large amount of spirit stones to flow out of the sacred dynasty, causing the already declining human martial artists to find it even more difficult to cultivate. Sometimes, if one wanted to obtain low-grade spirit stones, one had to be a high-ranking official or nobleman. One might even have to rely on the foreign races. The illusion pills had also corroded the ruling body of the sacred dynasty. Many nobles, bureaucrats, and martial masters became even more greedy after using the illusion pills, aggravating the parasitic and rotten nature of the ruling body. They accepted bribes, covered up the smuggling of the illusion pills, and used various methods such as increasing rent and taxes to transfer the cost of the illusion pills to ordinary martial artists. This made it even more difficult for ordinary martial artists to maintain their high cultivation costs. It could be said that the biggest reason why many martial artists couldn't advance to the martial master realm was because of the illusion pills. In addition, the illusion pills severely weakened the combat strength of military martial artists. Some of the generals and soldiers of the sacred dynasty had also taken the illusion pills. For example, in the Tianfeng City Navy, not only did the officers and soldiers use the illusion pill, they also accepted large amounts of bribes. The Navy's patrol ships had actually made an agreement with the ninjas' Dreamy Elixir ship that every box of Dreamy Elixir will be paid with spirit stones or gold. A large number of anti-smuggling ships had even become Dreamy Elixir smuggling ships. It could be said that the fantasy elixir had destroyed the bodies of countless human warriors. Now, almost every town in the sacred dynasty would see places selling fantasy elixirs. This caused many martial artists to mistakenly consume it or be unable to resist the temptation and eventually become the ninja's puppets. Or he would become a cripple who lost all his martial arts. Such martial artists could be said to number in the thousands. It was precisely because Lin Zhe saw this problem that he proposed the decision to ban the import of fantasy pills. Although the sage emperor of the human race was young, he still had some backbone and supported Lin Zhe's decision. However, this matter was still fraught with difficulties. Tianfeng City's problem was solved. However, under the protection of the ninjas, Governor Wan Ben, and the local bureaucrats and sects, there were still many fantasy pill shops in the entire White Cloud province. Some of the bosses of the fantasy pill shops were directly from the ninjas, the blue-eyed race, and other races. Completely eliminating these people was not something that could be done in a short period of time. The convoy returning to White Cloud capital drove along the winding mountain path. Lin Zhe told Ling Xiao about this matter. Nurturing a martial artist was not only about nurturing their strength, but also about nurturing their correct mindset. If a peerless expert was nurtured who committed all sorts of evil, then the nurturing would probably be a failure. That was probably what Lin Zhe was thinking, so he felt that it was necessary for him to tell Ling Xiao and Ling Yixue about this matter. He wanted them to judge the situation of the fantasy elixir. He would not force the two of them to do anything, because that would only have the opposite effect. However, he would guide them with good intentions. All right, the two of you don't have to think too much. With your current strength, you won't be able to help me in destroying the fantasy elixir. Therefore, the key is to increase your strength. Lin Zhe laughed when he saw the serious expressions on their faces. This was also to ease the atmosphere. General Lin, you are already a martial artist at the peak of the 9th level martial vein. Can't you do things according to your own ideas? Ling Xiao asked doubtfully. Sigh. Lin Zhe sighed and said, not to mention a martial artist at the peak of the 9th level martial vein. Even if you step into the transcendent realm, how can you do whatever you want? The higher you go, the more you will know that there is always someone better than you. Transcendent realm? What exactly is this transcendent realm? Ling Xiao asked excitedly. He had seen martial artists at the peak of the 9th level martial vein, but he had yet to see a transcendent realm martial artist. Therefore, he was naturally very curious. Lin Zhe smiled and said, the transcendent realm is the realm of transcendence. To be more precise, it means that you have left your mortal body and stepped into a completely different realm. Your body will undergo some very special changes, and your lifespan will be greatly extended. It's a pity that I've only heard of it. Only when you truly reach the transcendent realm will you understand how powerful a martial artist of that realm is. I also yearn for it. But Ling Xiao, in this general's opinion, your chances of entering the transcendent realm are probably greater than mine. Ling Xiao was a little surprised when he heard this and couldn't help but ask, General, why do you say that? Intuition. Lin Zhe smiled and said, of course it's not just intuition. It can be seen from your perception. Generally speaking, martial artists who can enter the transcendent realm are martial artists who can comprehend profound moves from the transcendent martial arts at the martial master stage. And if I'm not wrong, you've probably already comprehended the profound moves of the transcendent martial arts, right? Ling Xiao hesitated for a moment, but still told the truth. I won't hide it from General Lin. I've only comprehended 5 incomplete, profound moves of the transcendent martial arts. I'm still far from the complete, transcendent martial arts. As he spoke, Ling Xiao couldn't help but recall the scene when he first comprehended the moves. Transcendent martial arts should be able to draw upon the power of nature. As for the transcendent realm, could it be that the body could borrow the power of nature? If that was the case, it was no wonder that Lin Zhe said that a human's physique and lifespan would undergo a huge change. The transcendent realm is incomparable. Those who can reach that realm are all martial grandmasters of their own sections. In the human sacred dynasty, there were too few transcendent martial artists. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been bullied to such a state today. Lin Zhe sighed and said, "If the human sacred dynasty is like this, then there's no need to mention the vassal state of northern Han. As for the Baiyun province, this general has yet to see a single transcendent martial artist." As he spoke, Lin Zhe was clearly filled with melancholy and helplessness. How could he not want to advance to the transcendent realm? Unfortunately, it wasn't something that everyone could achieve. The reason why he took in young martial artists in the border guarding general's estate was because he wanted to nurture a few talents for the Baiyun province, northern Han, and even the human race. Chapter 141. What do I need to reach the transcendent realm? Ling Xiao asked, "Comprehension, body, and true yuan. You just need one of the three." Lin Zhe replied, "Of course, with all three, the possibility of reaching the transcendent realm is the highest. Your comprehension is definitely fine. In the future, you will have to focus on strengthening your body or true yuan. If you really have the energy to spare, it's best to raise both at the same time. The stronger, the better." "I understand." From Lin Zhe's words, Ling Xiao understood a layer of meaning. Below the transcendent realm, it was actually a kind of tempering for the martial artist's body. The so-called comprehension was actually the effect of having a strong soul. In other words, soul power. Soul, body, and true yuan. These could be said to be the three paths of cultivation that a martial artist had to follow. Breaking through the limit of any one of these paths could allow one to reach the transcendent realm. From the first level to the 9th level of the martial vein, it was actually a kind of strengthening and tempering of the soul, body, and true yuan. Techniques were not that important. At this stage, techniques were used to protect oneself and allow one to reach the transcendent realm smoothly. "General, there's a situation." Suddenly, Lin Chen's voice came from outside the carriage. "Speak. A giant beast is blocking our way." "What level is it?" "It's a peak level 8 giant beast, but it seems to have a primordial bloodline. I'm afraid its combat strength is not lower than a beginner level 9 beast." Although Lin Chen's strength had not reached the martial master realm, his broken martial soul was very special. It could analyze the opponent's basic information. This ability was very similar to the first ability of Ling Xiao's Mountain River martial soul, but it was obviously a weaker version. However, among the many broken martial souls, this was already very good. Why was Lin Chen not a martial master, but he could follow Lin Zhe? It was not because his surname was Lin, but because of his broken martial soul. "Do you too want to see it?" Lin Zhe suddenly smiled and looked at Ling Xiao and Ling Yixue in the carriage. Of course. Ling Xiao was a little excited. When he was cultivating in the Dragon Submission Mountain Range, he encountered the peak level 8 Herculean ape. In the end, he was chased by it and ran away like a rat. However, he was saved by a blue-clothed woman who killed a peak level 8 demonic beast with a single finger. And when the Ling family was surrounded, the corpse of the peak class 8 demonic beast also played a key role. Currently, the corpse of the Herculean ape was still preserved by Ling Xiao in the Mountain River world. In that world, it seemed that nothing would rot. This could also be considered one of Ling Xiao's killing moves. With this killing move, even if he encountered a martial master at the 7th level of the martial vein realm, he would still have the power to fight. It was a pity that this thing consumed too much soul force. Unless it was absolutely necessary, he wouldn't dare to use it. Ling Yixue also jumped out of the carriage with Ling Xiao and looked at the giant beast blocking the road. It was a giant bull. Its 2 horns almost reached into the clouds, and it was more than 10 meters tall. Its huge body was terrifying to look at. When its 2 nostrils blew, it was as loud as thunder. Listening to it, there was a strange buzzing sound in people's ears. It was very uncomfortable. There is a mark on its forehead. It should be a demonic beast with a master. Humph! A rat hiding its head and showing its tail. Do you want to use this beast to probe my strength? Lin Zhe stood there and watched for a moment. He couldn't help but sneer, and then waved his hand. A long saber appeared in his hand. This saber was more than 10 feet long. On the long hilt, there was a fierce tiger coiled around it. The blade was very sharp. At a glance, one could tell that this wasn't an ordinary weapon. At the very least, it was much more powerful than Ling Xiao's ice glass sword and breeze sword. That's the flying tiger crescent blade, a divine artifact. Lin Qin proudly said to Ling Xiao and Ling Yixue, "Divine artifact." Ling Xiao was indeed shocked. The ice glass sword in his hand was only a mortal artifact, but it already made him very satisfied. Sure enough, the weapons in the hands of a peak 9th level martial vein realm martial artist were extraordinary. "Evil beast, take this." Lin Zai's speed wasn't very fast. Well, at least that was how it seemed to the crowd. But the strange thing was that his saber seemed ordinary and slow. But the giant bull couldn't dodge it. The giant bull wanted to dodge, but no matter how it tried to escape, the saber seemed to be able to lock onto it. "Gotcha!" There was a loud sound. The giant bull's head was cut off as easily as cutting tofu. Terrifying. That's a peak 8th level demonic beast, the same level as the Herculean ape, but it was killed just like that. Ling Xiao couldn't help but think of the blue-clothed woman he met in the Dragon Submission mountain range. Well, that woman's strength should be stronger than General Lin Zai. Thinking of this, Ling Xiao really felt a little scared. Lin Zai was already at the peak 9th level martial vein realm. Could it be that the blue-clothed woman's strength had already reached the transcendent realm? Ha ha ha, great. Son, this giant bull is very nutritious. Let's set up camp in front tonight and then roast the giant bull. Lin Zai put away his saber and laughed heartily. Ling Xiao didn't laugh at this time, nor did he respond, because his mind was now completely focused on cultivation. Peak 9th level martial vein, transcendent realm, and now he couldn't even be considered a martial master. This made Ling Xiao feel a sense of urgency, a strong sense of urgency. When the night was dark, Ling Xiao also got some giant beef to eat. This giant bull had an ancient bloodline in its body. Although it was very faint, it was still very nutritious for a martial artist. Ling Xiao took advantage of the night to cultivate. In just one night, he had absorbed most of the giant beef, and his cultivation had advanced from the middle of the 6th level martial vein to the late 6th level martial vein. However, he had now changed the template to the early 6th level martial vein. This was not too low or too high, so as to avoid being targeted. In addition, he had used this power to perfect the ghost ship's remnant soul he had obtained from the king of 10,000 people to 30%. A 30% incomplete martial soul was extremely rare among the human clan's warriors. It's time to upgrade the 9 transformation golden body technique. Ling Xiao had more than enough gold in the mountain river world, so he planned to start upgrading the 9 transformation golden body technique in the next period of time. This was because this defensive martial art had a terrifying strengthening effect on the body. Lin Zai said that if he wanted to break through to the transcendent realm, it was best to combine the soul, body, and true essence to reach a certain height. He also planned to do the same. Although he could make a breakthrough in one aspect, it would definitely not be as good as making a breakthrough in all 3 aspects. According to his estimation, once he reached the transcendent realm, he would be able to cultivate whichever series of martial arts he made a breakthrough in. For example, there were transcendent martial arts that specialized in the soul, transcendent martial arts that specialized in the body, and transcendent martial arts that specialized in the true essence. If they couldn't advance together, then the loss would be great. Many transcendent martial arts might not be able to be cultivated. Lin Qin, did you see that? The reason why a genius is not only because his talent is high enough, but also because he knows how to endure hardships. Lin Zai sat in the distance and was very satisfied when he saw Ling Xiao cultivating so hard. General, when we return to Baiyun Prefecture this time, Can you let me start cultivating in seclusion?" Lin Chin suddenly asked. "Ha ha ha, of course, there is competition, there is improvement." Chapter 142. In front is the white cloud capital, Sky Cloud City. Novel, the journey on the horse carriage was indeed rather slow. 2 days later, Lin Zhe pointed to a black the size of a fly several miles away and said, Ling Xiao looked towards that direction, and it was really a wide expanse of flat land without any cover. Only in front of that black there seemed to be 2 huge mountains blocking the way, forming a narrow passageway. This was a good place, which was easy to defend but hard to attack. In other people's eyes, all these were just blurry black dots. However, in Ling Xiao's eyes, the situation was totally different. Under the state of soul engraving, the scenery from afar seemed to be magnified instantly. Those 2 lofty mountains became even clearer. On top of the 2 mountains, there were some defensive facilities, and near the mountain pass, there were also some troops stationed there. Looking through this narrow passageway, after about 1 kilometer or so, a majestic city came into view. This Sky Cloud City was built according to the mountains and looked as though it was floating in the air, hence it was called Sky Cloud City. The structure of the city was totally different from Heaven Peak City, and it was 7 to 8 times bigger than Heaven Peak City, as though it was an ancient giant beast lying in the middle of the mountains. Whereas that passageway was more like the mouth of this giant beast, as though it wanted to swallow the people who came in. What a majestic city! Ling Xiao couldn't help but praise. You can actually see the exact situation of the city. Lin Zhe was shocked when he heard that, because even if he was at the peak of the 9th level of the Martial Vein, when he looked at Sky Cloud City from this position, it was merely a blurry shadow. The rest were even worse off, only seeing a black the size of a fly. Ling Xiao didn't explain further and only nodded his head. Lin Chen, who was standing by the side, wasn't convinced. "I don't believe that you can really see the exact situation from so far away. Then tell us more." Ling Xiao smiled faintly and told them about the general situation of Sky Cloud City, making the surrounding soldiers on horseback dumbstruck. "You've been to Sky Cloud City before, right?" Lin Chen still asked in disbelief. Ling Xiao didn't explain, but continued. Standing at the outermost part of the passageway is a man with a scar in between his brows, wielding a knife. "Ha ha ha, Lin Chen, don't be unconvinced. He can even tell who is on duty today. This is talent. You can't compare to him. Even I have to admit defeat." Lin Zhe laughed heartily. Lin Chen didn't say anything. He thought that since they were about to arrive, he would see if Scar 6 was on duty later to find out if Ling Xiao was bragging. If he could even guess this correctly, then he would really be full of admiration for Ling Xiao. Because the guards stationed outside the city were rotated irregularly, so even if it was someone who stayed in Sky Cloud City for a long time, they would not be able to guess it. Lin Chen was dumbfounded. This was because Scar 6 had already walked up to them and saluted. Originally, there were also some soldiers who were suspicious of Ling Xiao, like Lin Chen, but now they all looked at him as if they had seen a ghost. "Scar 6, why are you on duty today?" Lin Chen asked in a bad mood. Sigh. Lin Chen smiled bitterly. Scar 6 was puzzled, until one of the soldiers told him that Ling Xiao saw the scar in between his brows from miles away. He was so shocked that his jaw almost dislocated. The carriages passed through the passageway and didn't meet with any obstructions. After all, with Lin Zhe's status, who would dare to obstruct him? As they walked along the long ramp into Sky Cloud City, Ling Xiao realized that this city was filled with top exponents. There were almost no ordinary people in Sky Cloud City. In this city, everyone would be checked to see which cultivation method was suitable for them the moment they were born. Then they would start to lay their foundations when they were 2 to 3 years old. By the time they were 7 to 8 years old, the worst was already at the first level of the Martial Vein. It could be said that in Sky Cloud City, even the beggars on the streets were all practitioners. This was the disparity. One must know that in Sky Peak City, ordinary people accounted for more than 80% of the population. White Cloud Capital was indeed White Cloud Capital. The capital of White Cloud Province was indeed different from the rest. Sky Cloud City's citizens seemed to have a good impression of Lindsay. Along the way, wherever the carriages passed by, there would be people bowing towards the carriages, their faces brimming with smiles. It was as though their long-awaited loved ones had finally returned from the outside. Sky Cloud City's architectural style wasn't much different from Sky Peak City's, except that most of them were more majestic. The streets were paved with bluestones. Not only were they spacious, they were also flat. Even if 6 to 7 carriages were to pass through, there wouldn't be any problem. Ling Xiao even saw people riding on demonic beasts passing through the streets. The citizens didn't show any signs of panic. He curiously asked Lindsay. The answer he got was, there were many people in Sky Cloud City who could tame demonic beasts. They could be used as battle strength or as mounts. Actually, Lindsay also had demonic beasts as mounts, and they could fly. But in order to take care of most people, he didn't use them. That's the border guarding general's residence. Suddenly, Lin Chun shouted excitedly. Ling Xiao raised his head and took a look. This general's residence wasn't as luxurious as he had imagined. It couldn't even be compared to the Ling family's mansion. As compared to the residences of many officials and nobles in Sky Cloud City, it was indeed a little shabby. General empathizes with the citizens, so the general's residence is built very simply. Lin Chen explained, but we're not going there. We're going to the army camp. General, shall I bring Ling Xiao and Ling Yixue to the army camp? He looked towards Lin Zhe and asked. Lin Zhe stood in front of the general's residence and pondered for a moment before suddenly asking, Ling Xiao, I'll give you 2 choices. One is to cultivate by my side and no one will fight with you for cultivation resources. You might even be able to receive my personal guidance. The other is to enter the army camp and receive the same training as other geniuses. It's extremely tough and you can only rely on yourself to fight for cultivation resources. I will not interfere. The latter. Ling Xiao pondered for a moment before answering. Oh, why is that so? Lin Zhe was surprised and pleasantly surprised. It's very difficult for flowers in a greenhouse to grow. Ling Xiao said faintly, when I was in the Ling family, I realized that including Ling Fifan, Ling Chan, and Ling Yin, they were all spoiled and lost the motivation to compete. So once they encounter a small failure, they would break down. He wasn't a masochist, but he understood that it was best for him not to live under Lin Zhe's protection. Otherwise, he would forever be a fledgling. Good. I, Lin Zhe, have not misjudged you. Lin Zhe smiled. Lin Chin, bring the 2 of them to report to the border army. You don't have to take special care of them. Come back after arranging for them to enter the latent dragon camp. Yes, sir. General, then we'll take our leave. Ling Xiao and Ling Yixue bowed and left with Lin Chin. Before they left, Ling Xiao casually glanced at the 2 guards outside the border general's residence. They're both at the initial stage of the 6th level of the martial vein. Ling Xiao couldn't help but be shocked. Martial artists with such cultivation were only the guards of the border general's residence. Martial artists with such cultivation would definitely be the VIP of any clan in Tianfeng City. They could even be given the position of elder in some mid-tier clans. However, they were only guards here. Chapter 143. The latent dragon camp was where the geniuses in the military gathered. When Ling Xiao and Ling Yixue followed Lin Chin into the latent dragon camp, they realized this. The people here were all young. The oldest one they met was less than 30 years old. The weakest martial artist in the latent dragon camp was at the early stage of the 5th martial vein. It did not sound very powerful. However, it was clear after a comparison. The Ling family was one of the 4 major families in Tianfeng City. As long as one's cultivation reached the 5th martial vein, he would be ranked in the top 10 or even the top 5. Here, the early stage of the 5th martial vein was considered an ordinary disciple. Unless one was extremely talented, one could not enter the latent dragon camp without reaching the 5th martial vein. Ling Xiao did not know who was the strongest martial artist. However, he saw 4 or 5 martial vein masters above the 7th martial vein level in just a short while after entering the latent dragon camp. These people should be the instructors of the latent dragon camp. Although they were older, they were not more than 30 years old. Ling Xiao, Ling Yixue, there's a rule in the latent dragon camp. The better your results, the better food you can eat, stay in a better place, and learn under a better master. Lin Chen introduced as he walked. For the martial artists who just entered, the instructors are usually at the early stage of the 7th martial vein level. If your performance is good enough, it'll be easy for you to get guidance from a martial vein level 8 or even a martial vein level 9. Understood. Ling Xiao felt that this wasn't a problem. No matter where, no organization could be impartial. Geniuses needed special care. It was normal for mediocre people to be abandoned. The more capable you were, the more resources you would get. This was fair. Fairness was not equal. If everyone had the same resources, that would be truly unfair. The barracks of the latent dragon camp are in front. I believe you can see the difference. Lin Chen pointed at the barracks in front of them and smiled. Ling Xiao nodded. Even a fool could see that the barracks were divided into 3 categories. One of them was a shared dormitory. It was a tile-roofed house where all the warriors who had just arrived and the lowest level of the latent dragon camp lived. On the other side was a building made of brick and stone. The building was very beautiful, and it was a single room. Everyone had their own room. Although it was not big, it had its own independent space, and there was even a servant. Looking further up, there were actually 3 separate courtyards with 3 entrances and 3 exits. There was a courtyard, a room, a kitchen, a training room, and other facilities. There were also 3 maids and 3 servants. I won't explain it further. The latent dragon camp is not a place for idlers. It's a place for cultivating talents. The 3 independent courtyards and the 7 stone houses are the rewards for outstanding warriors. Lin Chen smiled. I heard that General Lin Zhe has 12 young generals under his command. The youngest is only 16 years old, and the oldest is less than 30 years old. Are they also from the latent dragon camp? Ling Xiao asked. That's right. These 12 young generals are all from the latent dragon camp. Some of them are good at leading troops in battle. Some of them are good at martial arts that can kill a person in 10 steps, and some of them can appear and disappear unpredictably and take the enemy's head in the midst of 10,000 soldiers. Lin Chen nodded and said, outside, they're also known as the 12 Tiger Guards. The 12 Tiger Guards should all be martial masters, right? Ling Xiao asked. That's right. They're all top geniuses from the latent dragon camp. They're also our role models. I hope that you and I can become Tiger Guard generals one day. When Lin Chen said this, he was very excited. It seemed that in his heart, he really admired the Tiger Guard general. Ling Xiao smiled but did not answer. To him, the Tiger Guard general was just a goal for a certain stage. In fact, since he knew that there was a transcendent realm in this world, he had been working hard toward that goal. As for what was after the transcendent realm, he did not know, and there was no need to think about it. It would not be too late to think about it after he reached the transcendent realm. For now, it was better to stay in the latent dragon camp and improve his strength. Here, even the most ordinary martial artist could receive more resources and pointers than the best martial artists in the Ling family. Therefore, the possibility of advancing had increased a lot, which made him more determined to stay. Lin Chen, did you bring back new people this time? On the way, many people recognized Lin Chen and greeted him. Yes, 2 geniuses personally selected by the general. Lin Chen smiled. Every time Lin Chen said the sentence, The young warriors who were hurrying on their way would stop and look at Ling Xiao and Ling Yixue with unfriendly gazes. "Brother Lin, those words of yours have made us a lot of enemies." Ling Xiao smiled. "It's okay. This kind of thing can't be hidden from the latent dragon camp. They'll find out sooner or later. Actually, it's not really making enemies. They just heard that the two of you were personally selected by General Lin Zhe. So they definitely want to know why you're here. Just show them a little." Lin Chen said nonchalantly. "In the latent dragon camp, it's impossible to keep a low profile unless you're willing to accept the worst food, the worst accommodation, the worst instructors, and the worst resources." "That's true." Ling Xiao thought that since it was his first time here, he wanted to keep a low profile. However, after hearing Lin Chen's words, it seemed that it was impossible to keep a low profile. If he chose to keep a low profile, it meant that he would always be at a disadvantage when competing with others. He was not stupid. If he insisted on torturing himself, he would be an idiot. "It's good that you understand." Lin Chen continued. "One more thing, I have to warn you. Although the latent dragon camp is General Lin Zhe's territory, there are many people from the Sky Ninja Academy and Governor Wan Ben in there. If they know about what happened in Tianfeng City, they'll definitely target you. You must be careful." "I know. Aren't you surprised?" Lin Chen was surprised. There's nothing to be surprised about. With the ninja's abilities, it's not difficult to sneak into the latent dragon camp. With the help of Governor Wan Ben, it's even easier. Ling Xiao's face suddenly turned cold as he said this. He continued, "It's fine if they're obedient. However, since they dared to provoke me, I'll help General Lin get rid of these scourges." If someone who possessed the mountain river martial spirit did not have this much confidence, then he was not worthy of the mountain river martial spirit. He did not dare to say anything about warriors above the martial master level. However, he was not afraid of warriors below the martial master level. What monstrous genius! In front of him, all of them were mere mortals. Although he looked calm and experienced, the passion and ambition in his heart were no less than anyone else's. He would never forget the humiliation he suffered when he was a beggar. He would never forget the scene of his beggar relatives being killed. He would also never forget the Ling family being surrounded and almost in a desperate situation. Everything was related to strength. If he was strong enough, he would not be bullied. If he was strong enough, he would be able to protect his family. If he was strong enough, who would dare to attack his family in front of him? Strength was everything. Everything else was meaningless. Ha ha ha, domineering. I like people like you. Chapter 144. Greetings, General Jiu Yu. Lin Chen immediately cupped his hands and bowed. Lin Chen, you don't have to be so courteous with me. These two must be the geniuses that Marshal Lin picked from Tianfeng City. All right, leave them to me. Go do your work. I know that you're a busy man, General Jiu Yu said with a smile. All right, but General Jiu Yu, Marshal Lin said that there's no need to take special care of them. Do you understand? Lin Chen said after some thought. Marshal Lin is still so heartless. General Jiu Yu shook his head and smiled bitterly. Lin Chen smiled and cupped his hands at Ling Xiao and Ling Yixue before leaving. I'm one of the 12 Tiger Guard generals. We're divided according to the months, so I'm Jiu Yu. You can call me Jiu Yu. There's no need to call me General. Jiu Yu was a straightforward person. Ling Xiao liked to make friends with people like him. I'm Ling Xiao, Ling Yixue. Both of them introduced themselves. All right, follow me. I'll bring you to get some daily necessities, and then we'll go to your accommodation. I'll also tell you the rules of the latent dragon camp. Jiu Yu did not waste any time. He led Ling Xiao and Ling Yixue to the warehouse. Along the way, he told them the basic rules of the latent dragon camp. The rules were simple. First, they had to apply for permission to leave the camp at least 7 days in advance. They could only leave after getting permission. Second, there was no equality here. There was only fairness. Everything had to be fought for by oneself. No one could help you. Third, the Latent Dragon Camp was a place to nurture martial artists. Not only would they not stop sparring, but they would also encourage it. However, all sparring and fighting must not kill or injure. Lastly, there was one more point. They were not allowed to bully the weak with numbers. All sparring and fighting had to be agreed upon by both parties. Through these 4 rules, it could be seen that the border general's mansion was much more protective of the weak martial artists than the Ling family. Being temporarily weak did not mean that they would be weak forever. They would be grateful to be protected and would be more willing to help in the future. On the contrary, if he ignored them, it would definitely cause resentment in their hearts. Sooner or later, something big would happen. In fact, in comparison, Ling Xiao preferred the second rule. Everything had to be fought for by oneself and not be given out by others. This was relatively fairer, and martial artists would be more motivated. After receiving the 2 sets of training uniforms from the Latent Dragon Camp, Zhu Yu brought Ling Xiao and Ling Yixue to their residence. Considering the difference between men and women, the Latent Dragon Camp also separated a row of bunks for the girls. Therefore, Miss Yixue didn't have to worry about sleeping or bathing. Zhu Yu pointed at the rows of shared beds and introduced them. The food in the bunk isn't bad, but it's not delicious either. It can only ensure that you're full. Furthermore, because there are more people, the instructor can't teach you alone. Usually it's a group lesson, and then you can comprehend it on your own. Furthermore, the instructor is at most a martial master at the peak of the 7th level of the martial vein. In addition, there will be a monthly expenditure of 100 silvers, as well as 10 gang chi pills and 1 piece of lower-grade spirit stone. The food in the individual bunk is much better. Not only is the nutrition balanced, there are various choices. Moreover, everyone will have an individual martial master to guide them, and that person is at the 8th level of the martial vein. In addition, there will be a monthly expenditure of 10,000 silvers, as well as 100 gang chi pills and 10 pieces of lower-grade spirit stones. As for the 3 individual bunks, it's even better. As long as it's something that you can find in Sky Cloud City and can afford, you can eat it. You can even enter and leave the military camp freely. The first rule is invalid to them. Of course, the other 3 rules still need to be followed. In addition, the most important thing is that they will have individual martial vein 9th level martial masters to guide them. They can even receive individual guidance from Martial Lin. In addition, there will be a monthly expenditure of 10,000 silvers, as well as 1,000 gang chi pills and 100 pieces of lower-grade spirit stones. Not knowing if it was because Ling Xiao and Ling Yixue were brought here by General Lin Zhe, Zhu Yu was very patient with them and introduced the basic situation of the Latent Dragon Camp in detail. The difference is so huge. If I want to stay in a better place, can't I just challenge them directly? Ling Xiao asked. That's right. If a lower-level disciple challenges a higher-level disciple, the other party must accept it. Unless they are injured or sick, you can challenge whoever you want to get the individual bunk. It's the same if you want the individual bunk. Zhu Yu nodded. All right, I understand. Thank you, General Zhu Yu. Ling Xiao understood tacitly, but he wasn't in a hurry to challenge them. It wouldn't be too late to challenge them after he had familiarized himself with the situation here. Although he was very interested in the rewards of the higher-level disciples, Ling Xiao wasn't a reckless person. He wasn't sure of the specific abilities of the individual bunk and individual bunk practitioners. If he were to challenge them rashly and fail, it would definitely affect his future path as a practitioner. Let's go quickly. Someone wants to challenge the captain of the 10th team. Just as Ling Xiao and Ling Yixue were preparing to return to their bunks to rest, there was a commotion over there. What does the captain of the 10th team mean? Ling Xiao asked Zhu Yu curiously. There are a total of 10 individual bunks. Not only do they represent the 10 outstanding geniuses of the Latent Dragon Camp, but they are also the captains of the 10 squads. Whoever stays in the bunk will be the captain, and the people under him will have to listen to him. Juyu explained. As for the 3 individual bunks, they are the head captains and their deputies. You must have noticed that the bunk in the middle is better than the ones on the sides. Then you are? Oh, I'm sort of a military governor. I'm in charge of supervising the latent dragon camp. After all, these people don't have much experience. It's better to have an experienced helper. Jiu replied with a smile. All right, I've told you everything that needs to be said. You guys can do whatever you want. However, I suggest that you guys go over and watch the commotion. You guys can get a rough idea of the strength of the latent dragon camp so that it'll be easier for you guys to challenge them in the future. Thank you, General Jiu, for your advice. If you have something to do, please go ahead. We're fine with it. Ling Xiao cupped his hands and said, That's good. Jiu smiled and turned to leave. Ling Xiao and Ling Yixue didn't enter the bunk. Instead, they went to watch the commotion with their training clothes. This was the first battle that they saw after coming to the latent dragon camp. Naturally, they had to pay more attention and not miss it. There was still some distance between the individual bunk and the bunk. However, both of them walked quickly. When they arrived, the battle hadn't started yet. TSK. Today's battle is interesting. Zhang Yuan has only been here for 3 days, and he dares to challenge the captains. There were many people watching the commotion, but most of them were disciples from the bunk. This Zhang Yuan can't be underestimated. He's only 16 years old, but he's already a martial artist at the peak of the 6th martial vein level. He's definitely talented. It's said that this kid has already condensed 99% of his sword essence. He's almost able to condense 10% of the broken sword soul. No wonder he's so arrogant. However, the 10 captains aren't easy to deal with. They're not to be trifled with. Ling Xiao observed the disciples from the bunk. Just as he had guessed, most of them were at the 5th martial vein level and above. There were also many at the 6th martial vein level. There were even a few who were at the peak of the 6th martial vein level. These people weren't old. The oldest was only 16 or 17 years old, and the youngest was only 12 or 13 years old. The latent dragon camp was indeed worthy of its name. Any one of the martial artists here was qualified to compete for the title of Tianfeng City's 4 young masters. Fortunately, he came out. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to see the sky if he stayed at the bottom of the well. Chapter 145. There was not much difference in strength between the 10 individual rooms and the 10 captains, but there was definitely a gap. In order to give these people more motivation to improve, there was a difference in treatment between the 10 individual rooms. Of course, the difference was not as big as the difference between the 3 levels. It was a gradual process to go from the 10th to the 1st. Zhang Yuan was a martial artist at the peak of the 6th level of the martial vein, which was the same cultivation as the 10 captains. He came from a town similar to Tianfeng City and was considered the number 1 genius there. It was inevitable for him to be arrogant. Even so, he did not dare to challenge the captains at the top. Instead, he chose the 10th captain, the weakest one. Of course, according to him, this was called a sword test. If he succeeded, he would challenge the martial artists at the top. You want to challenge me? The door of the individual room opened and a man and a woman walked out. The man was the 10th captain, Yin Ran, and the woman was his maid. The maid was usually carefully selected by the general's mansion. She was not weak and very loyal. Yin Ran was a tall and thin man. He looked as if he would fly away with a gust of wind. His face was pale and he did not smile. He even kept coughing as if he was terminally ill. Seeing this, Zhang Yuan was relieved. He smiled and said, I'm Zhang Yuan, a new disciple of the latent dragon camp. I'm here to learn from you. Zhang Yuan did not have Ling Zhao's insight, so in his eyes, Yin Ran was just a sickly man. However, Ling Xiao could see that Yin Ran's strength was terrifying. He was definitely not weaker than Lin Chen. He should also have a broken martial soul. His sickly condition was most likely related to his damaged martial soul, and not a serious illness on his body. Ling Xiao could see that Ayn Rand's vitality was very strong. He did not look like he was dying at all. "Learn from me. Don't be so polite. Make your move. If you win, this room and the mate are yours." Ayn Rand put on a pair of gloves while coughing. Obviously, the gloves were not ordinary gloves. They should be made of precious materials, such as silk. Together with his earth energy, they were as tough as swords. "That's good." Ling Xiao challenged Ayn Rand for a house and a maid, as well as better treatment and a better instructor. Since Ayn Rand was so sensible, there was no need to talk nonsense. His figure suddenly swayed, and the long sword in his hand trembled. A stunning sword technique was displayed. 9 Sword of Flowing Cloud. The sword art was a top-notch entry-level martial art, and so was the body art. Moreover, both of them had already been cultivated to perfection. No wonder this person dared to challenge a captain-level warrior. His strength was definitely not to be underestimated. If such strength was placed in Tianfeng City, then besides Ling Xiao and Ling Yixue, no one would be able to suppress him. Ayn Rand only glanced at it indifferently. Her expression didn't change at all. Then she gently slapped out with her palm. Transforming Bone Soft Palm. His palm technique was very strange. It seemed light and without any power, but wherever the palm wind passed, there was actually an aura of death. A fallen leaf accidentally landed on the palm wind and instantly rotted and withered. It was also a top-notch entry-level martial art, and they were both at perfection. However, Ayn Rand's understanding of martial arts was clearly better than Zhang Yuan's. This palm strike was aimed at the weakest part of Zhang Yuan's sword art. Clang! Bang! When the top-notch martial arts of the same realm met, Zhang Yuan's expression changed. He quickly retreated, but even so, his right hand that was holding the sword was still trembling. He was about to throw the sword to the ground. Not only that, but a part of his sleeve was also clearly corroded. Astonishment, horror. It was hard to describe Zhang Yuan's current mood. Although they were both at the same realm, there was actually such a huge difference in attack power. This could only mean that there was a huge gap between their martial arts techniques. Ling Xiao's eyes lit up. Ayn Rand didn't have his mountain river martial soul, but he was still able to catch his opponent's flaw. This kind of person was very scary. Transforming Bone Wind. Ayn Rand didn't give Zhang Yuan any time to be surprised. After his first strike succeeded, he immediately followed up with a second strike. It was still the Transforming Bone Soft Palm, but there were some changes to the technique. The palm wind became more sinister, and even through his palms, one could faintly see a black aura emerging. This kind of aura made the martial artists who were watching the battle shudder. Some people even had auditory hallucinations, as if there were cries of ghosts and howls of wolves in their ears. 90% sword intent. Break. It was too late for Zhang Yuan to dodge. He didn't advance, but instead retreated. He increased his sword intent to 90%, and the Transforming Bone Soft Palms attack on his mind instantly dissipated. He stabbed his sword, trying to turn the tables. Sinister wind step. However, Ayn Rand seemed to have predicted this move. His figure suddenly disappeared, and when he reappeared, he was already behind Zhang Yuan. Transforming Blood Explosion. An even more terrifying martial arts technique was displayed. Ayn Rand's right hand was wrapped in a ball of blood-red light, and one could actually see a faintly discernible skull. A terrifying aura spread out, and many of the spectating disciples were shocked and retreated. With this, Ling Xiao and Ling Yixue, who were originally standing at the back of the crowd, became the ones standing at the front. Wow! This Transforming Blood Explosion should be a killing move that he comprehended from the Transforming Bone Soft Palm. Sai, there's nothing we can do. The 10 captains are all monsters. Their innate comprehension is too terrifying. I'm afraid none of US can block this palm. Don't forget, that Ain Rand hasn't used his Ain spirit remnant soul yet. Everyone's expression changed when Ain Rand's remnant soul was mentioned. In fact, from Ain Rand's attack style, it could be seen that he was an expert in evil martial arts techniques. There was no distinction between good and evil martial arts techniques. If this martial arts technique was used for good, it would naturally be a good martial arts technique. However, if it was used for evil, it would become an evil martial arts technique. This was also the reason why Ain Rand was not kicked out of the latent dragon camp. Zhang Yuan won't be able to block this palm. Ling Xiao sighed. Now he somewhat understood why Zhang Yuan dared to challenge a captain-level martial artist despite there being so many shared sleeping disciples. It was because the longer one stayed in the latent dragon camp, the more one would understand how terrifying the 10 captains were. Zhang Yuan was new and had only been here for 3 days, so he didn't know about this. Therefore, he had the boldness of a newborn calf that was not afraid of tigers. However, boldness was boldness and strength was strength. It was normal for a newborn calf to be eaten by a tiger. 100% sword intent. Drifting cloud burial. At this critical moment, Zhang Yuan unleashed all of his potential. 100% sword intent was close to 10% of his remnant soul. Drifting cloud burial was the most powerful technique in the 9 drifting cloud swords. This sword seemed like it was going to pierce through the sky. The terrifying sword intent condensed on the long sword, forcing the surrounding disciples to take a few steps back. Ling Xiao and Ling Yixue were standing in front of each other. It was very abrupt. Boom! The tip of the sword was blocked by a palm. The two of them clashed again. At that moment, Ling Xiao realized that something sinister suddenly appeared behind Ain Rand before disappearing in an instant. The moment that thing appeared, Ain Rand's attack suddenly became much more powerful. That thing looked like a skeleton wearing a cloak. Its eyes were glowing red, and it was holding a book in its hand. It looked very evil. It should be Ain Rand's remnant soul, Ain's spirit remnant soul. Chapter 146. Ah! Zhang Yuan screamed as his body flew out like a kite with a broken string. Not only that, but his clothes were also rotting. It was a horrifying sight. Ain Rand had borrowed the power of the Ain spirit remnant soul and was extremely powerful. Zhang Yuan could not block it even with his 100% sword essence. If it wasn't for the 3rd rule in the latent dragon camp, you would have become a pile of rotten meat by now. The 3rd rule was that no one was allowed to kill or cripple someone. Ain Rand glanced at Zhang Yuan and stood there with his palm. His gloomy eyes were fixed on Ling Xiao and Ling Yixue. The gap between them is too big. The onlookers could not help but sigh. That's right. He's clearly at the same level of cultivation, but he defeated Zhang Yuan effortlessly. Of course, a martial artist with a 20% incomplete martial soul has a huge advantage over a martial artist without a martial soul. Ling Xiao listened to these people's discussions, but he had a different opinion. In fact, Ain Rand could have defeated Zhang Yuan even without using the Ain spirit remnant soul. He just needed to spend more time. Ain Rand had 2 advantages other than his incomplete martial soul. First of all, his combat skills were clearly derived from actual combat, and were definitely not something that a so-called genius like Zhang Yuan could compare with. Secondly, Ain Rand had a high comprehension ability. There were not many martial artists who could comprehend a killing move from martial arts. He was one of them. If the 10 captains of the latent dragon camp were all at this level, it would be terrifying. However, Ling Xiao had a feeling that Ain Rand was hiding his strength. He could sense a trace of a martial master's aura from him. Yixue, let's go. Ling Xiao had seen the captain's strength, so there was no need for him to stay. Stop! Ain Rand's gloomy voice was heard. Captain Ain, what can I do for you? Ling Xiao asked calmly. Ain Rand was not a martial master, so he was not afraid. Since the 2 of you have come out, and I have come out of my room, why don't you play with me? Ain Rand said. Ling Xiao looked around and couldn't help but smile bitterly. It turned out that while everyone else was retreating, only he and Ling Yixue remained in their original positions, so it really looked like they were taking the initiative to step forward and challenge him. Of course, he didn't need to explain, nor did he want to. Challenging a captain was something that would happen sooner or later. Since the other party had made such a request, what was next was to follow. Junior brother, leave him to me. Ling Yixue smiled. To be honest, Ling Yixue was introverted. She didn't like to live with others, so she had long wanted a single room. However, she was kind and didn't know who to challenge. Now that Ian was asking for a beating, she didn't need to be so conflicted. Fine. Ling Xiao did not object, because at present, Ling Yixue was stronger than him, and dealing with Ian Ran was a piece of cake. Even if Ian Ran had the remnant soul of Ian's spirit, it would be of no help. After all, the difference in their cultivation levels was too great. This little girl actually wants to challenge Ian Ran. I think he doesn't know what's good for him. Miss, be careful. This guy is very strange. Zhang Yuan had already changed his clothes. Anyway, he had a storage ring, so it was very convenient to change clothes. Seeing Ling Yixue's beauty, almost everyone would have a good impression of her, so it was normal to remind her. Thank you. Ling Yixue only nodded slightly, then looked at Ian Ran and said, You can make your move. Ian Ran revealed a sinister smile and said, Although I don't like to fight with women, since you want to come, then come. As a man, I'll give you the chance to make the first move. Ling Yixue sighed and said, Alas, why do some people just don't know how to cherish opportunities? As soon as she finished speaking, she had already rushed out. In just an instant, Ian Ran froze on the spot. His entire body was cold, and he couldn't move at all. Ling Yixue was a martial master. Even if she was only at the early 7th level of the martial vein, she was much more terrifying than a martial artist at the peak of the 6th level of the martial vein. Martial master. Heavens, no wonder this girl is so confident. She's so strong. Ian Ran is too unlucky. How did he offend such a monster? Ling Yixue returned to her original position. After a moment, Ian Ran also broke free from the frost. He solemnly cupped his hands towards Ling Yixue and said, I'm sorry for my rudeness. Ian Ran had eyes but failed to recognize Mount Tai. This house is yours. Ha ha ha, miss, his house is filled with Yin Qi. It's not comfortable to live in. Why don't you live with me? Suddenly a loud laugh was heard. It's the 9th captain, Tianguang. This guy is the most lecherous. His qigong is terrifying. Even many martial masters at the early 7th level of the martial vein can't catch up to him. No wonder he dared to come over and tease this girl even though he knew her strength. Hee, there's a good show to watch. Ling Yixue didn't say anything because Ling Xiao spoke up. 9th Captain Tianguang, I'm just worried about a house. Why don't you give me your house? What? Did I hear wrong? You want to challenge me? Tianguang looked at Ling Xiao with a smile. Among the 10 captains, he was one of the most difficult to deal with. If he couldn't win, he could run. No one could catch up to him. Usually, the common sleeping disciples wouldn't choose him. It was too strenuous and unrewarding. Ian Ran also looked at Ling Xiao curiously. After fighting with Ling Yixue, he no longer dared to underestimate Ling Xiao. However, the others still laughed out loud. They felt that Ling Xiao didn't know what was good for him. Humph, you're overestimating yourself. Who do you think you are? Do you think you're stronger than me? Don't embarrass yourself. Zhang Yuan was very concerned about Ling Yixue. However, he wasn't so nice to Ling Xiao. This was probably the so-called repel, and opposites attract. Ling Xiao ignored Zhang Yuan. He had seen a few of these frog-in-the-well geniuses. He couldn't be bothered to pay attention to them. He looked at Tianguang and said, The 4th rule of the Laden Dragon Camp is that if a low-ranked disciple challenges a high-ranked disciple, the high-ranked disciple can't refuse unless the high-ranked disciple is seriously injured or sick. Brat, you're pissing me off. This happened in the latent dragon camp. If it happened outside, I'll make sure you die a horrible death. Tianguang used to be a womanizer. Lin Zhe recruited him to the latent dragon camp because he wanted him to turn over a new leaf so that he wouldn't ruin such a talented person. Unfortunately, it wouldn't take a day or two for him to change. Tianguang's nature was hard to change. Not only was he lecherous, but he was also ruthless. When he said he would kill someone, he wasn't just talking about it. Ling Xiao didn't reply. Instead, he looked at Ling Yixue and said, "Senior sister, let's change rooms later." Ling Yixue blushed and lowered her head. "You have the final say." F***ck, it's like a fresh flower being stuck in a pile of cow dung. I'm so jealous. Where did this brat get such good luck to be favored by such a beauty? It's hard to say whether it's a blessing or a curse. If he doesn't have the strength to be appreciated by a beauty, it'll be a curse. There were all kinds of discussions, but Ling Xiao ignored them. Chapter 147. Whoosh! Tianguang suddenly moved. He was so fast that one could only vaguely see his afterimages on his path. In an instant, he appeared in front of Ling Xiao. The scimitar in his hand slashed towards Ling Xiao's body. He was very confident in his saber technique. He could definitely injure Ling Xiao slightly, but at the same time, make him lose his ability to fight. That kid is finished. Yes, even if they are similar in strength, he can't use his saber technique against Captain Tianguang's speed. Serves him right. He overestimated himself. Kid, I know you're a genius that General Lin found, but here, you have to rely on your abilities. Tianguang sneered. His scimitar was about to cut Ling Xiao's body. Suddenly, the figure in front of him disappeared. Who are you talking to? Behind him. Tianguang was shocked. What the hell? How did this kid suddenly appear behind me? Could it be that his body technique is faster than mine? Could it be that I didn't see him clearly? Was it an illusion? No, his body technique was too fast. The young men who were watching the battle no longer dared to underestimate Ling Xiao. His body technique alone was enough for him to gain a foothold in the latent dragon camp. Blood Moon Saber Technique. Tianguang was not a bad person. Although he was shocked by Ling Xiao's sudden appearance behind him, he was not prepared. At this critical moment, he did not panic and casually slashed his scimitar behind him. It was the Blood Moon Saber Technique, a top-notch entry-level saber technique. The Blood Moon Saber Technique was known for being unpredictable. It could be used from any position. In the latent dragon camp, many martial artists were defeated by Tianguang's saber technique. Even the few captains who were ranked at the top would have a headache when they saw this saber technique. This showed how difficult it was to deal with this saber technique. In particular, Tianguang's body technique and saber technique were a perfect match. Others could not tell, but they could tell that Tianguang's saber technique contained the mysterious power of his martial soul. However, it was still a remnant soul. At that instant, Ling Xiao vaguely saw a thin old man behind Tianguang. The old man looked no different from an ordinary person, except that he held a scimitar in his hand that was almost identical to Tianguang's scimitar. In the sacred dynasty of the human clan, there was an expert who used a machete. He was known as Ancestor Blood Machete. This person was already a transcendent realm expert, but because he killed too many innocent people, he was killed by an even stronger martial artist. Who would have thought that after this person's death, his remnant soul would not dissipate and would actually become Tianguang's broken martial soul? For a long time, humans had never fully understood how a martial soul was formed. They only knew that it was a type of spiritual energy. It could be said that the martial soul was the most mysterious and magical thing in the world. With the blessing of Blood Blade's remnant soul, the power of Tianguang's slash had increased significantly, including its speed and power. It even contained a murderous aura that could make people dizzy. This killing intent definitely didn't come from Tianguang himself, but from his broken martial soul. Your broken martial soul is interesting, but it's still useless in front of me. Ling Xiao hadn't used King of 10,000 Humans' ghost ship, Remnant Soul, since he obtained it. Today, he planned to test the power of this remnant soul in his hands. Ghost ship crossing. He shouted in a low voice, and a shadow appeared behind him. A ghost ship whizzed toward Tianguang's machete. The color of this ghost ship was obviously more realistic than King of 10,000 Humans. As it whizzed, it was as if it was riding the wind and breaking the waves. Even the giant beasts in the sea would be smashed into pieces. Clang! Tianguang's machete was almost deformed from the collision. He also flew backward with his, but facing the sand, and a trace of blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. In the air, he somersaulted a few times to avoid falling to the ground. He staggered and stood there. "You've already lost." Ling Xiao stopped attacking. He had just arrived and didn't want to offend anyone. "I haven't lost yet. I didn't expect you to have a broken martial soul. Then let's compete and see whose remnant soul is more powerful." Ling Xiao wanted to save some face for Tianguang, but Tianguang didn't appreciate it. As he roared, the shadow of Blood Knife ancestor behind him became more and more realistic. 20% broken martial soul. I haven't seen Tianguang use this kind of broken martial soul against a common room disciple. It's rare to see a human-shaped remnant soul. The surrounding people started discussing. That kid's remnant soul should be the ghost ship's remnant soul of the Wan family. How could he have it? Is he from the Wan family? What a joke. The Wan family has the ghost ship's remnant soul. But it doesn't mean that the ghost ship's remnant soul is exclusive to the Wan family. The world is big, and we've broadened our horizons today. Ling Xiao wasn't worried about the use of the ghost ship's remnant soul, because, as this person said, the ghost ship's remnant soul wasn't exclusive to the Wan family. "Tianguang, since you want to continue, I'll accompany you to the end." Since someone didn't want to give him face, Ling Xiao didn't need to be polite. Ghost ship breaking waves. Ling Xiao pushed forward with both hands. The ghost ship turned into a giant shadow, faster and more powerful than before. This was a move that even the king of 10,000 people couldn't comprehend. Ling Xiao had perfected the ghost ship's remnant soul to 30%, so he comprehended it. Its power was stronger than the ghost ship crossing and ghost ship explosion. Blood saber slash. Tianguang naturally didn't dare to be careless. He raised his scimitar and slashed forward. The giant energy shadow merged with the scimitar in the hands of the blood saber ancestor, and its power increased greatly. This is Tianguang's strongest attack. He sighed and said, "If he still can't win, then he'll be embarrassed this time." Boom! It was an overwhelming advantage. The ghost ship crashed into the scimitar and instantly shattered the scimitar's remnant shadow. Tianguang was sent flying by the huge impact, and the scimitar slipped out of his hand. In midair, he spat out a mouthful of blood, drawing an ugly arc in the air. Boom! He fell heavily to the ground, and his eyes lost their color. This scene caused everyone who saw it to be extremely astonished. Tianguang, who was known for his body movement and saber art, was not only inferior to someone in body movement for the first time, but his saber art was also easily defeated. The most terrifying thing was that this person's cultivation was lower than Tianguang's. "That was your strongest move just now, right?" Tianguang struggled to sit up from the ground and asked Ling Xiao, "Do you want to hear the truth or a lie?" Ling Xiao asked, "Of course I want to hear the truth." Ling Xiao sighed and said, "The truth is it's not my strongest move, and it's just an ordinary move that I use to practice." Hearing this, Tianguang's face changed. After a long time, he stood up, took his scimitar, and turned to leave. Before he left behind a few words. "My room is yours. Now I understand what it means to say that there is always someone better than you. It seems like it's time for me to cultivate seriously. I hope you won't be defeated by others. I will come and challenge you again. I'll be waiting, but you have no hope. Those who have been defeated by me have no chance to win against me." Ling Xiao shook his head and said. Tian Guang's body trembled, but he didn't say anything and chose to leave. "Although you're not as strong as this beauty, in my opinion, you're more terrifying than her." He stared at Ling Xiao and said, "Same to you. Didn't you hide your strength too?" Ling Xiao said indifferently. Chapter 148. Although Ayn Rand was smiling, she was shocked. She did not expect that someone would see through her after she tried so hard to hide her strength. Moreover, it was a newcomer. She denied it because she did not want other people to know. However, she was sure that she could not fool Ling Xiao. Fortunately, they were not enemies. That was the only thing that she was thankful for. "Senior sister, Tian Guang's room is like a lady's room. You can stay here. It's easy for you to defeat Tian Guang anyway." After the battle, Ling Xiao checked Tian Guang and Ayn Rand's rooms. Ayn Rand's room was indeed gloomy. It was not suitable for a girl to stay in. Tian Guang's room was much better. It was like a lady's room and there were many beautiful decorations in it. Tian Guang only took the valuable items when he left. Okay. Ling Yixue did not reject Ling Xiao's kindness. Just like that, Ling Xiao received the title of 10th captain, and Ling Yixue received the title of 9th captain. Both of them could stay in a spacious and bright single room. At the same time, they received not only enjoyment, but also respect from the disciples who shared rooms. This included Zhang Yuan, who looked down on him, and the martial artists who mocked him. All of them shut their mouths immediately. The latent dragon camp was a place where strength was respected. Whoever was strong would be respected and respected. "Captain Ling, I'm the one who said the wrong thing. I hope you don't take offense." Zhang Yuan lowered his head and apologized to Ling Xiao. Although the weak could refuse to fight so that they would not be bullied by the strong, it was only limited to the latent dragon camp. One could not stay in the camp forever. Therefore, if one could build a good relationship with the strong, at least they would not be bullied. "We're all from the general's mansion. You don't have to be so polite." Ling Xiao would not take the ignorant sarcasm seriously. After Zhang Yuan left, Ling Xiao was about to start cultivating. However, he suddenly noticed a beautiful maid standing next to him. He could not help but smile bitterly. When he was in the Ling family, he had never been taken care of. The key was that he was not used to it. "What's your name?" Ling Xiao asked. "This servant is Cold Plum." "How about this, Cold Plum? You stay outside and don't let anyone disturb my cultivation. I'll call you if I need anything." He didn't want anyone to see the secret of his cultivation. This servant obeys. Cold Plum curtsied and walked out of the room, closing the door behind her. Although she was only a maid, her cultivation had reached the early stage of the 5th level of the martial vein. The latent dragon camp was indeed full of hidden talents. Closing his eyes, Ling Xiao began to cultivate. No matter when, raising one's cultivation level was always the most important thing. This was because even if all your martial arts had advanced to the transcendent realm, a martial artist at the peak of the 6th level of the martial vein was still not worth mentioning when facing a martial artist at the 7th level of the martial vein. Even though Ling Xiao had defeated Tian Guang and become the 10th captain, he was still surrounded by danger before he became a martial master. Circulating the Snow Lotus Chi formula, Ling Xiao held 2 low-grade spirit stones in his hand and swallowed 10 Aura Chi pills at the same time. Then he began to cultivate. Not many people dared to use such a luxurious cultivation method even in the Baiyun prefecture. Ling Xiao had obtained a lot of spirit stones and Aura Chi pills from the Black Scarf Bandits, so it was okay for him to be extravagant. As long as his cultivation level increased, he would be able to get these things sooner or later. He was very clear about this matter. Only when he was strong enough could he protect himself. If he lost his wealth, he could get it again with his strength. Soon 2 hours passed. Ling Xiao opened his eyes and found that his 6th level of the martial vein was almost full. This meant that he was about to reach the peak of the 6th level of the martial vein. For things like cultivation, the further one progressed, the slower the speed. Ling Xiao was not in a hurry. Whether it was spirit stones or aura chi pills, if he used them continuously, the effect would be greatly reduced. Although he was eager to break through, he still had to wait a day or two. He believed that after consuming 2 low-grade spirit stones and 10 aura chi pills, he should be able to reach the peak of the 6th level of the martial vein. Since his cultivation level could not be increased, he began to study martial arts. He had comprehended a sure kill skill, Shadow King Kill, from the multiple shadow sword technique, which made him realize that these martial arts could still be developed. Thus, he spent the whole night comprehending the killing move from the barbaric bull strength, the barbaric bull roar. This killing move was different from the Shadow King Kill. It was not an offensive skill, but an auxiliary one. After using the barbaric bull roar, his defense would drop a lot, but his attack would increase exponentially. In addition, he also comprehended the killing move from the Falling Star Fist, the Falling Star Strike. Different from the Shadow King Kill's single-target lethality, the Falling Star Strike focused on large-scale lethality. Although he did not break through, comprehending 2 killing moves in a row made Ling Xiao feel very good. Looking at the sky outside the window, it was already bright. Just as he was about to go out to find Ling Yixue to eat together, he suddenly heard the sound of fighting outside the door. Ling Xiao frowned, stood up, pushed the door open, and walked out. Just as he arrived outside, he saw the shadow of a leg sweeping over. Ling Xiao snorted coldly and punched out, directly smashing into the soles of this person's feet. The other party's vigorous strength caused him to take a step back. This surprised him, because he cultivated the 9 transformation golden body technique and obtained the dragon blood essence in the dragon temple in the dragon submission mountain range. Every cell that turned into a baby dragon would increase his strength by 100 gene. Now he already had 10 baby dragon cells in his body. It was equivalent to an increase of 1,000 gene in strength. In addition, after the 7th transformation of the 9 transformation golden body technique, his strength had increased by 1,000 gene. In total, his strength was more than 2,000 gene higher than an ordinary martial artist of the same level. Usually, in terms of strength, he would completely crush his opponent. He did not expect that he would take a step back today. The other party's strength was not weak. He was surprised. In fact, the other party was even more surprised. In the latent dragon camp, the 10 captain-level martial artists all had their own specialties. Just like the previous 9 captains, Tianguang, who was fast young Master Morong, who came to Ling Zhao's room to cause trouble today, was the 8th captain of the latent dragon camp. The most terrifying thing about him was his strength. Young Master Morong was arrogant. He was only 15 years old, younger than Yin Ran and Tianguang, but he was more powerful. His terrifying strength, in particular, was a headache for others. However, today he actually lost to Ling Xiao in terms of strength. He was pushed back more than 10 meters by a punch before he could stabilize himself. Ling Xiao glanced at Cold Plum, who was on the ground, and could not help but frown. At this moment, Cold Plum's face was pale, and she was spitting out blood. It was obvious that a few of her ribs were broken. Her arms were shaking, and it was obvious that they were fractured. Although he did not have any friendship or relationship with Cold Plum was now his servant girl. One had to look at the master before beating a dog. This person actually injured Cold Plum to this extent. If he did not teach him a lesson, not only would he lose face, but he would also feel unhappy. However, before teaching this person a lesson, he planned to send Cold Plum to get treatment first. "Don't move. I'll send you to get treatment. Tell me, where's the medicine hall?" Ling Xiao carried Cold Plum and asked gently, "Ha ha ha, I didn't expect you to be so gentle." Chapter 149. If the medicine hall won't treat her, I'll take her out. Ling Xiao frowned. He began to have a bad impression of the latent dragon camp. However, he also knew that the human sacred dynasty was decadent, and the lives of the slaves had always been worthless. This was not the latent dragon camp's problem, but the entire human sacred dynasty's problem. No wonder a group of forces called the Heavenly Truth Alliance had appeared recently. On one hand, they were resisting the invasion of the human territory, and on the other hand, they were trying to overthrow the decadent human sacred dynasty. Although the Heavenly Truth Alliance was now regarded as an evil sect by the human sacred dynasty, they were all killed. Once a member appeared, they would be killed. However, it was still growing. The key was that some of its sayings had given many people at the bottom of society hope. It had given hope to those who were disappointed in the decadent, human, sacred dynasty. Even Ling Xiao was looking forward to joining the Heavenly Truth Alliance. Captain Ling, don't mess around. Don't forget the latent dragon camp's rules. Someone reminded him. Yeah, Captain Ling. If you want to leave, you have to apply at least 7 days in advance. If you leave, you'll be breaking the rules and you'll be punished. These people had good intentions. After all, Ling Xiao had just arrived at the latent dragon camp, and he did not have any enemies. Therefore, most people did not want him to be unlucky. Thank you for your kindness, but Cold Plum won't live long if she's not treated in time. Ling Xiao thought about it carefully. Although he was not a kind person, he could not watch Cold Plum die just like that. If he was punished because of this, he would accept it. After all, one had to pay a price for doing anything. Then he was about to leave with Cold Plum in his arms. At this moment, Cold Plum was struggling to get down. However, her injuries were too severe, and she could not break free from Ling Xiao's steel-like arms. Kid, I asked you to stop. Didn't you hear me? Young Master Morong stopped Ling Xiao and said coldly, Do we know each other? Ling Xiao asked. You don't know who I am, but I know who you are. I heard that you were personally selected by Marshal Lin and even defeated Tianguang. You should have some capabilities. The reason I came to look for you today is because I want to spar with you. Young Master Morong smiled. What's your name? Ling Xiao asked. Master Morong. Ling Xiao nodded and said, Okay, I'll remember this name. It's understandable that you want to compare notes with me, but since you hurt my maid, I'll make you pay for it sooner or later. It's just that I'm not free today. With that, he turned around and was about to leave. Challenges between people of the same level are not allowed to be rejected. Do you want to violate the rules? Young Master Morong said coldly. I've said it before. We'll fight another day. Ling Xiao wanted to teach young Master Morong a lesson, but he knew that young Master Morong's strength was not inferior to Tianguang's. If he were to fight young Master Morong with Cold Plum in his arms, it would be difficult to end the battle in a short time. After all, there were some skills that he could not use. Firstly, he had to keep some trump cards. Secondly, he was afraid that he would hurt Cold Plum. Stop. Don't think about leaving today if you don't fight. Young Master Morong blocked Ling Xiao's way and did not want to let him leave. What a joke. If you can block me, then go ahead. I'd like to see how powerful the 8th leader is. Ling Xiao sneered disdainfully. He had the mountain river martial spirit, so he knew how powerful young Master Morong was. Kid, don't think that you're powerful just because you defeated Tianguang. I forgot to tell you that Tianguang can't even last a few moves against me. Young Master Morong stared at Ling Xiao. Since he dared to challenge Ling Xiao, he had weighed the pros and cons. In his opinion, Ling Xiao might be more powerful than Tianguang, but not by much. The reason why Ling Xiao had won so easily was that Tianguang had underestimated his opponent. Moreover, Ling Xiao's speed was the bane of Tianguang's, and he just so happened to be the nemesis of speed-type martial artists. He who had cultivated a top-notch entry-level defensive martial art, not only was his body as tough as steel, but his strength was also extremely great. Even if he stood there and let Tianguang hit him, Tianguang would not be able to hurt him. Therefore, he thought that Ling Xiao was the same type of martial artist as Tianguang, so he was not afraid. Nonsense. Ling Xiao did not want to waste any more time with young Master Morong. He moved his feet and used the soaring cloud steps. He went around young Master Morong and ran towards the gate of the latent dragon camp. Cold Plum was in a dangerous situation, and he could not afford to waste any more time. Therefore, he was really anxious. "You're courting death. How dare you ignore me?" Young Master Morong was furious. In the latent dragon camp, apart from the 3 geniuses in the 3 courtyards, nobody dared to ignore him like that. Kill. He knew that his body technique was not as good as Ling Xiao's, so he was prepared to deal with him when he arrived. All of a sudden, he tossed out an item, which enveloped Ling Xiao within it. The item looked like a big net, but it was very sturdy. Ling Xiao punched it casually, but it did not break. Hee, don't waste your energy. Young Master Morong had also trapped himself in the net in order to keep Ling Xiao here and weaken the advantage of Ling Xiao's movement skills. Seeing Ling Xiao trying to break the net, he laughed disdainfully. "This thing is a fine quality, precious weapon. If you're not a martial master, you won't be able to break it unless you have a fine quality, precious weapon. Looks like you're really courting death." Other than when his family was killed, Ling Xiao had never been as angry as he was today. "Ha ha ha, I'm courting death? You're boasting shamelessly." Young Master Morong laughed out loud, and his aura suddenly increased. He then waved his hand, and an axe appeared in his hand. His weapon was a common treasure weapon, the same as Ling Xiao's ice glaze sword. Mountain Slash! With a single word of disagreement, young Master Morong directly struck towards Ling Xiao. He had great strength, and a weapon like an axe was most suitable for martial artists who had great strength. To young Master Morong, it was a match made in heaven. "Don't bother about the maid," someone shouted from outside. Ling Xiao did not listen. If he let go of Cold Plum now, she would be out of his protection range, and she would definitely be injured again. What the others did not know was that he was currently channeling Qi into Cold Plum's body to keep Cold Plum alive. Otherwise, if this continued, Cold Plum would really die. In that case, he could not let go of Cold Plum. Ghost ship crossing. Ling Xiao tried his best to avoid contact with young Master Morong, and the ghost ship crossing was a long-range attack. Boom! Ling Xiao used the ghost ship crossing with one hand, and it actually repelled young Master Morong's axe. "Good boy, you have some skills. No wonder you could defeat Tian Guang." It had to be said that this was the second time young Master Morong was shocked. The first time was when he used his leg to lift Ling Xiao, and he was repelled. That time, he could say that he underestimated his opponent and did not use his full strength. However, this time he used his full strength for the Mountain Slash, and his opponent actually blocked it. This boy's strength was really terrifying. He was confident that his strength was ranked first among the 10 captain-level experts. Chapter 150. Apart from Shirley, the other 2 were not as strong as young Master Morong. Of course, they were stronger than him. Novel. He could still defeat him easily. The next few exchanges shocked young Master Morong even more. He had to admit that Ling Xiao was not weaker than him. Instead, he was stronger than him. He had firmly suppressed him. After all, he had 2 hands while Suemo only had 1. However, he was always at a disadvantage. Mountain Slash! The Mountain Slash was the second move of the Mountain Slash. It was more powerful than the previous move. It was as if a giant axe was descending from the sky and was about to break the ground. The sound was so loud that it made one's heart palpitate. Ghost Ship Explosion. Ling Xiao performed the second move that he had comprehended from the Ghost Ship Remnant Soul without changing his expression. His attack was not based on its power. Instead, it was a move that he had calculated so that it would be more powerful than his opponent's. It would not waste his energy. Bang! Once again, the axe was blasted away. Young Master Morong was almost sent flying. "Bastard, do you think you're the only one with a broken martial soul? I have one too." Young Master Morong had taken the initiative to attack Ling Xiao twice in a row, but he was unable to do any damage to him. This had hurt his pride. Therefore, he decided to use his trump card, a broken martial soul. He was sure that the 10 captain-level martial artists all had broken martial souls. Moreover, they were basically 20 to 30% broken martial souls. Roar! As young Master Morong gathered his energy, a furious roar came from behind him. It was the shadow of a giant bear. The shadow was about 4 meters tall, and it was a black bear. The black bear remnant soul of the animal martial soul. No wonder you're so strong. Ling Xiao finally understood where young Master Morong's strength came from when he saw the black bear remnant soul. So what if you know? I'll make you lie here today. Young Master Morong sneered. But don't worry. I know the rules of the latent dragon camp, and I'll follow them. I won't kill you or cripple you, but you'll have to lie in bed for a month or 2. Is that so? The more Ling Xiao listened to young Master Morong's words, the stronger the killing intent in his heart. If he had the chance, he would definitely kill this person with his sword. As for today, he would collect some interest first. Moo! A terrifying bull's roar suddenly rang out. Ling Xiao used the killing move of Bull Force. He had just come to understand. Bull Roar. Once he used this move, his attack power would increase exponentially, while his defense would decrease by nearly half. However, defending was no longer important, because attacking was more important. Ghost Ship Breaker. The power of the combination of Barbarian Bull Roar and Ghost Ship Breaker could be imagined. Giant Bear Splitting Mountain. Young Master Morong also saw how terrifying Ling Xiao's move was, so he naturally did not dare to be negligent. He condensed the essence of the black bear remnant soul and the mountain splitting axe technique. It was as if a giant black bear was brandishing a giant axe towards Ling Xiao. Stop! At the critical moment when Mars was about to collide with Earth, a voice rang out. The person who came was dressed in black armor. He was tall and powerful. He was about 2 meters tall and did not look like a human being. His voice was filled with explosive anger. He directly rushed into the net from outside. Ling Xiao and young Master Morong both heard it. However, neither of them had the intention to stop. At this time, whoever stopped would probably be seriously injured. The black-armored youth's face was gloomy. He actually smashed the net with a punch and then suddenly appeared between Ling Xiao and young Master Morong. He broke Bull Roar and Ghost Shipbreaker with one hand and Giant Bear Splitting Mountain with the other. Shirley, martial artist at the early 7th level of the martial vein realm. Ling Xiao and young Master Morong were a little shocked. However, the focus of their shock was different. Young Master Morong was shocked that Shirley, the deputy commander, would get involved in other people's fight, because this kind of fight did not violate the rules. Ling Xiao was shocked by Shirley's strength. The head captain and the 2 deputy commanders were probably experts in the martial artist realm. Ling Xiao thought to himself, "Commander Shirley, what are you doing?" Although young Master Morong was afraid of Shirley, he was arrogant and could not help but question him. Ling Xiao also looked at Shirley. He did not understand what Shirley was trying to do. Shirley said calmly, "General Ju Yu ordered all the latent dragon camp disciples to gather at the training ground. There is an important announcement. As the head captain, you can't be late." "What is it?" young Master Morong asked. "You will know when you get there." "Why don't you ask General Jiu Yu?" Shirley looked at young Master Morong coldly with a threatening aura. "No need. I will go now." Young Master Morong had to lower his head in front of the powerful Shirley. "You are lucky today. However, you won't be so lucky next time." Before leaving, young Master Morong did not forget to warn Ling Xiao. "What about you?" Shirley looked at Ling Xiao and asked. "No matter what it is not as important as a human life. I have to take her to get treated first." Ling Xiao shook his head and said, "It's an emergency, so it's a special case. Take my token and go to the pharmacy. They won't dare to not treat you, not to mention a maid. Even if it's just a cockroach, they will take good care of it." Shirley said after thinking for a while. Ling Xiao took Shirley's deputy commander's token and could not help but feel emotional. This was the benefit of being powerful. He had to become a martial master as soon as possible. Otherwise, many things would be very difficult to deal with. "Thank you." Ling Xiao nodded at Shirley. Then he carried Cold Plum to the medicine hall. Just as Shirley said, the medicine hall was not willing to accept Cold Plum at first. However, when they saw the deputy commander's token, their attitude changed drastically. After settling Cold Plum in the medicine hall, Ling Xiao went to the training ground alone. At this time, the training field was already full of people. Standing at the front of the group were naturally 9 out of the 10 captains. On the high platform was General Jiuyu and 2 other deputy commanders. Who is that kid? Why is he walking towards the captain's seats? Someone had gone out to carry out a mission earlier, so he did not recognize Ling Xiao. He was puzzled. That guy is called Ling Xiao. He defeated Tian Guang. That girl is called Ling Yixue. She defeated Yin Ran. Therefore, the 2 of them replaced the other 2 and became captains. An insider explained, "Good guy. This newcomer is good. He actually defeated 2 captain-level disciples in a row. But his luck won't last long. He has already been targeted by young Master Morong. If it wasn't for Commander Shi stopping him today, he would have been seriously injured by young Master Morong. Why do I feel that he is stronger than young Master Morong? Don't forget that he is carrying a girl in his arms." Silence. Just as the crowd was discussing, Shirley's loud voice rang out. A martial master was indeed a martial master. Just by shouting, his domineering voice seemed to be able to suppress everyone's aura. Those who were talking immediately shut their mouths. "I have gathered all of you here today because I have something important to announce. This is an excellent opportunity for all of you. I hope that you will listen carefully." Chapter 151. Hearing Shirley's words, the youths could not help but swallow their saliva. They would definitely regret it if they missed it. It was definitely very important. Therefore, everyone did not even dare to breathe loudly at this moment. They all pricked up their ears to listen to Shirley's words. I'm sure everyone knows that the recent proliferation of illusion pills has caused a lot of trouble for the Sacred Dynasty. Marshal Lin came to Baiyun province to destroy the illusion pills and ban the illusion pill trade. Shirley's voice was not loud, but it was full of energy. It was very clear to everyone's ears. As disciples of the Laden Dragon Camp, you are a group of people that Marshal Lin is looking forward to. At this critical moment, shouldn't you share Marshal Lin's burden? Yes. The voices below the stage were very orderly. Good. Marshal Lin will definitely be very happy that you have such intentions. Shirley nodded and continued. But don't worry, this mission won't be in vain. The people below the stage could not help but swallow their saliva again because they were looking forward to Shirley's next words. Marshal Lin is worried about the country and the people. He is determined to destroy the illusion pills. Therefore, he has become a thorn in the side of many people. He once said, "After I die, someone must inherit my career." Speaking of this, Shirley sighed and said, "Although I and everyone present here certainly do not wish for Marshal Lin to be harmed by traitors, there are always unexpected changes in the world. Marshal Lin has considered the matters after his death and has decided to break the convention and recruit a direct disciple." Wow! For a moment, the crowd was in an uproar. Everyone was very excited, including General Jiuyu, who was sitting there silently. In the past, Marshal Lin was unwilling to accept disciples because he was afraid of misleading them. In fact, it was because he did not have the time to guide them. However, the situation was more important than the person. Recently, Marshal Lin had encountered a series of assassination attempts. Although he had survived, no one could guarantee what the future would be like. Therefore, in the situation where he did not have any children, disciples would become the continuation of his career. The 12 Tiger Guards also wanted to become Marshal Lin's disciples. Therefore, General Jiu was excited. This time, Marshal Lin will recruit 3 personal disciples. As for the rest, even if they can't become Marshal Lin's personal disciples, as long as they complete the mission well, they will definitely have the opportunity to receive personal guidance from him. Shirley continued, "That's why all of you have to work hard. Of course, I have to work hard too. In Baiyun province, becoming Marshal Lin's personal disciple is almost everyone's dream." These words were not false. In Baiyun province, the 2 strongest people were Baiyun Governor Wan Ben and the border General Lin Zhe. Lin Zhe's reputation was obviously better, so most people still hoped to become Lin Zhe's disciple. As for the people in the Latent Dragon camp, it was needless to say. Apart from a few spies that Wan Ben had planted in the camp, the rest all joined because of Lin Zhe. Ling Zhao's face also revealed a trace of shock. Although he once had the opportunity to stay by Lin Zhe's side and learn from him, he was not a disciple after all, so he definitely would not be able to learn the true teachings. However, things were different now. If he had the opportunity to become Lin Zhe's personal disciple, then he would have the opportunity to learn Lin Zhe's true martial arts. As a martial artist who dreamed of entering the transcendent realm, if he could obtain the guidance of an expert like Lin Zhe, it would definitely be beneficial. "Commander Shi, just tell me what the mission is." Some people below the stage could no longer hold back their excitement. "Let's leave it to General Jiu." Shirley looked at Jiu, who was sitting there, and said with a smile. Jiu nodded and looked at the people below the stage. "The mission is naturally related to destroying the illusion pills." Everyone's face was filled with anticipation. There are many foreigners in Baiyun Prefecture. Some of the stubborn illusion pill merchants have the support of foreign forces. If Marshal Lin wants to do it himself, he'll have to face the consequences of falling out with the governor and becoming enemies with the foreigners. Jiu suddenly smiled and said, "This is Marshal Lin's helplessness, but it's also your opportunity." After some discussion, Marshal Lin has decided to give the mission of eliminating these illusion pill merchants to the 12 Tiger Guards and the Latent Dragon camp. However, remember, everyone only represents themselves when you go out this time. If you're caught, you'll only represent yourself. Everyone understood what he meant. The reason why the 12 Tiger Guards and the Latent Dragon camp were sent was that these people rarely showed up, so not many people knew them. As long as they disguised themselves, they would be able to cut ties with the border general's mansion. Even if they were really caught, the Latent Dragon camp and the 12 Tiger Guards did not have an official designation. Therefore, as long as the border general's mansion did not admit it, the other party could do nothing and had no evidence. As for the spies in the Latent Dragon camp, of course, Lin Zhe had already prepared cages for them to crawl into. This mission was not only a test of strength, but also a test of loyalty. Unless these spies did not make a move, none of them would be able to escape. They would probably be uprooted. "Is there a time limit?" Young Master Morong asked. In fact, except for some newcomers, those who had stayed for more than a month had participated in real battles. Therefore, they were not afraid of such a mission. 3 months. General Jiu said calmly, "In these 3 months, you can act freely. It's up to you whether you want to assassinate or use force. The original team will also be disrupted. You'll form a team that you trust to carry out the mission. After all, this is a matter of life and death." In addition to the possibility of receiving Marshal Lin's personal guidance or becoming Marshal Lin's direct disciple, you can also obtain military merits by killing the illusion pill merchants or destroying the illusion pill. You all know about military merits, right? In our army, military merits can not only promote you and make a fortune, but it can also help you exchange for various things: silver, gold, energy pills, spiritual stones, top-notch martial arts, remnant transcendent martial arts, and even quasi-transcendent martial arts. Quasi-transcendent martial arts. Ling Xiao's heart skipped a beat when he heard this. Although the remnant transcendent martial arts were obtained from the real transcendent martial arts, it was difficult to gain much from it because it was a remnant. Even if there were gains, it could not be used in a battle quickly. Quasi-transcendent martial arts were different. Its level was higher than top-notch martial arts. Although it was not a real transcendent martial arts, it was second only to transcendent martial arts. It also had some profound meaning and shadows of transcendent martial arts. By learning quasi-transcendent martial arts, not only could one obtain stronger combat strength, but it could also build a good foundation for comprehending transcendent martial arts in the future. General, can you tell us more about the military merits? Someone below the stage asked. It's very simple. Most of the illusion pill merchants are foreign martial artists. There are also human martial artists who have sided with foreign martial artists. We don't kill ordinary people. We only target martial artists. General Jiu Yu continued. Killing a martial artist below the 3rd level of the martial vein will give you 1 military merit. Killing a martial artist at the 4th level of the martial vein will give you 2 military merit. The 5th level will give you 3 points. The 6th level will give you 4 points. Chapter 152. As for martial vein level 8 and martial vein level 9, you don't have to think too much about it. Leave them to us, the 12 Tiger Guards, and the 3 commanders. You guys are mainly responsible for martial artists below martial vein level 7. As usual, the 30 people with the highest military merits will have special rewards. The higher the ranking, the better the rewards. Are there any other questions? Yes. Ling Xiao asked, how many military merits do I need to exchange for a quasi-transcendent martial art? 100 points. General Jiu Yu replied. What? 100 military merits. It seems like we have no hope. Many disciples shook their heads and smiled bitterly. 100 military merits didn't seem like much, but after killing martial artists below the peak of martial vein level 6, the military merits earned were too little. It was impossible for them to defeat a martial vein level 7 martial vein master. Although the rewards were high, they could forget about it. Don't be discouraged. Although most of you might not be able to exchange for a quasi-transcendent martial art, it's easier to exchange for a rare top-notch martial art and a high-grade top-notch martial art. The former requires 20 military merits, while the latter requires 50 military merits. General Jiu Yu smiled. Hearing this, everyone gradually became lively again. After all, for most of the disciples, it was already very impressive to be able to master 1 or 2 entry-level top-notch martial arts. Rare, top-notch martial arts and high-grade, top-notch martial arts were what they dreamed of. As for quasi-transcendent martial arts, it was too far away, so it was better not to think about it. Moreover, it wasn't just martial arts that could be exchanged. There were also things like aura chi pills and spirit stones. They were all precious and could be exchanged for what they needed. In fact, General Jiu Yu only explained briefly. In fact, there were many more types of rewards that could be exchanged than what he said. This is a real trial. Ling Xiao took a deep breath and thought, no matter how intense the sparring in the latent dragon camp is, it's still just a sparring. Only such a mission can cultivate the ability to survive in the Jianghu. They won't be killed the moment they leave the latent dragon camp. In any case, he approved of this training method. Of course, with the mountain river martial spirit, he was full of confidence in killing the fantasy pill merchant. Not to mention his ability to escape, he was definitely not inferior to any martial vein level 7 martial vein master. This mission could be said to be a heaven-sent opportunity for him to improve his strength. Are there no more problems? No more. That's good. We'll start the mission 3 days later. During these 3 days, Marshal Lin needs to do some things and try his best to disassociate the death of the fantasy pill merchant from the border general's residence. General September stood up and left. Shirley and the other deputy commander also left. Strangely enough, They didn't see the head commander of the latent dragon camp, who was also the chief commander. Ling Xiao found it strange, but since no one asked, he didn't want to be nosy. After leaving the training field, he greeted Ling Yixue and went to the medicine hall to visit Cold Plum. The mission was important, but Cold Plum's injuries still needed some attention. "Did you send this girl here?" In the medicine hall, Ling Xiao met a woman in green. This woman was about the same age as Ling Yixue, about 2 years older than him. She was also a rare beauty that could topple cities. It was just that Ling Yixue was more reserved and introverted. This woman in green, on the other hand, gave people the feeling that she was a lady from a respectable family. Her words and actions were very mature and experienced. "Yes," Ling Xiao replied. "Not bad. People who know how to take care of their maidservants are generally not bad. I'm Dai Yuling. What about you?" The woman in green asked with a smile. Ling Xiao: "Yes, remember. Although this girl's life is not in danger, her body is still a little weak. Trust me, let her stay in the medicine hall for 3 more days. I promise to give you a lively little girl." Dai Yuling's smile was very beautiful, like the spring wind and rain, making people feel very comfortable. "Thank you. I trust you." Ling Xiao trusted his intuition. This woman's strength was very terrifying, much stronger than his. If she really wanted to harm Cold Plum, she wouldn't have to go through so much trouble. "Then you go. Prepare for the mission in 3 days. Maybe we'll have a chance to meet again." Dai Yuling smiled and turned to leave. Looking at the girl's back, Ling Xiao suddenly thought of someone. The head captain of the latent dragon camp had the surname Dai. Could it be this girl? Her age and strength matched very well. This woman was probably even stronger than General Yulin. Apart from her surname, she should be right. After returning from the medicine hall, Ling Xiao went to find Ling Yixue first. In the latent dragon camp, Ling Yixue was the only person he trusted for the time being. Therefore, it was the best choice to team up with her. Of course, Ling Yixue agreed happily. On that day, they were not the only ones who chose to team up. Many people in the latent dragon camp found their own teams. After all, having more people was also an advantage. Basically, other than the 2 captains, Ling Xiao and Ling Yixue, the other 8 captains had 6 to 7 people under them. The division of tasks such as combat, reconnaissance, and healing was also very clear. As for the 3 commanders and the 2 vice commanders, they formed a team. Naturally, they were not willing to bring people with lower strength to carry out missions. That would only drag them down. The head commander, Dai Yuling, had always been a lone ranger. Moreover, she came and went like a shadow. Basically, she should be in a team by herself. Interestingly, when Ling Xiao was about to return to his room to prepare, Yin Ran came to find him. This gloomy-looking former 10th captain wanted to team up with him and Ling Yixue. Ling Xiao thought about it and did not refuse. Yin Ran's combat strength was very impressive. In Ling Xiao's opinion, if Yin Ran used all of her strength, she would be ranked at the top of the 10 captains. She should be stronger than Tian Guang and young Master Morong. With such a strong person joining, it would be easier to obtain military merits. After sending Yin Ran away, Ling Xiao took out 2 low-grade spirit stones and 10 Orochi pills. He was ready to raise his cultivation to the peak of the 6th level of the martial vein in one go. The stronger one was, the more confident he would be. In just 1 day, Ling Xiao felt that his 6th martial vein was finally completely saturated. His 6 martial veins had all reached the state of transformation of the explosive qi. One of the martial veins had even begun to produce a trace of true essence. This feeling was very similar to when he advanced from the peak of the 3rd level to the 4th level of the martial vein. And from the 3rd level to the 4th level of the martial vein, it was the key to entering the Aura Qi stage from the awakening stage. Now that he had reached the peak of the 6th level of the martial vein, it was also a key to stepping into the 7th level of the martial vein, from the aura chi stage to the chi explosion stage. He believed that as long as he completely transformed the aura chi of the 6 martial veins into true essence, he should be able to naturally advance to the 7th level of the martial vein. He had become a martial master. After another day, Ling Xiao not only stabilized his strength at the peak of the 6th level of the martial vein, but also completely transformed the aura chi of the 1st martial vein into true essence. In this way, when he was at the peak of the 6th level of the martial vein, he could use the ability to burn true essence that could only be used in the martial master realm. Chapter 153. But even if the side effect of burning his true essence was greater now, Ling Xiao had another trump card. Even if he were to face a 7th level martial vein initial stage martial master, he would still be able to save his life without using the Herculean divine ape's corpse. As for winning, the difficulty was still very high. After all, challenging someone of a higher realm was different from challenging someone of a higher realm. The difficulty was slightly higher, unless he transformed the aura energy of at least 5 martial veins into true essence. At that time, if he challenged a martial vein master at the 7th level, he might really have the strength to fight. Of course, even now, it was basically impossible for a 7th level martial vein initial stage martial master to take his life. He had too many attacking methods, and even if he couldn't kill his opponent wouldn't be able to kill him easily. Standing up, Ling Xiao walked out of the room. "You're all right." Cold Plum stood outside the door without saying a word. She seemed to have recovered, and her complexion was much better. "Yes, leader." Cold Plum lowered her head and said, "Good, that's good. I'm going out for a mission today. Do you want to come along?" Cold Plum's strength was at the initial 5th level martial vein initial stage, which was indeed a little low. But there were many practitioners who were below the 5th level among the fantasy pill merchants. To her, this might be a good opportunity to raise her strength. "Can I?" Cold Plum was a little excited and surprised, because in the entire latent dragon camp, there was no practitioner who would treat a servant as a human, not to mention bringing her along for a mission. "There's nothing impossible about it, but your strength is weaker, so you have to listen to my arrangements." Ling Xiao said indifferently, "Yes, leader." At this moment, the latent dragon camp's disciples had already formed into groups and left. All of them were dressed casually, so it was basically impossible for anyone to recognize their true identity, even if they didn't have any latent dragon camp's markings on them. Ling Xiao, Ling Yixue, Yin Ran, and Cold Plum had also set off. Yin Ran said that something had happened in the past 3 days. There was a rumor in Sky Cloud City that Border General Lindsay had brought the 12 Tiger Guards and latent dragon camp's disciples to destroy the fantasy pill. This news should be a rumor spread by the Border General's mansion. As for how they did it, Ling Xiao didn't want to care. There was no need to be concerned. Lin Zhe should be very familiar with this kind of thing. Since we've teamed up, we should be honest about our strength. What do you think, Brother Yin? Ling Xiao needed to know Yin Ran's true strength. That way, he would be able to arrange missions more rationally, and he would be able to make the best judgment when encountering enemies. Of course. He nodded and released his aura. Half-step to martial master with a 50% incomplete martial spirit. Good fellow, you were indeed hiding your strength. Ling Xiao could feel that Yin Ran's 5 martial veins had all transformed into quintessential essence. In terms of strength, she was stronger than Ling Xiao. Furthermore, she was a true half-step martial master. "Excuse me," he said with a sinister smile. Ling Xiao naturally knew that Yin Ran still had a trump card that had not been exposed. However, this was not something that could be forced. Many martial artists would leave behind 1 or 2 trump cards in order to preserve their lives. Next, Ling Yixue displayed her cultivation, the early 7th level martial vein. She is indeed a martial master. Only now did Yin Ran completely confirm Ling Yixue's strength. What surprised everyone was Cold Plum. This girl had actually cultivated a set of martial arts called the Qi restraining art. Its effect was almost the same as Ling Xiao's mountain river martial spirit model. Her true cultivation had already reached the early 6th level martial vein, not the early 5th level martial vein. Not only that, Cold Plum also had a 20% incomplete martial spirit, the Snow Plum remnant soul. It looked like a plum blossom standing in the wind and snow. It stood proudly in the cold and was very beautiful. I'm ashamed. This girl has been by my side for 2 years, but I didn't know that she had such a cultivation. Ain Rand smiled bitterly. Cold Plum used to be his maid, but he did not care about her as much as Ling Xiao. Ling Xiao could understand Cold Plum's choice. It was because having a strong servant was definitely not a good thing. It would not bring you any status, but would only bring you danger. You might even be handed over to do anything that required your life. It's my turn. Ling Xiao released his aura. Peak of the 6th level martial vein. 40% ghost ship remnant soul. Ling Xiao obviously could not display his full strength. There was no need for that. The strength that he had displayed was enough to complete this mission. Good Lord, Brother Ling's cultivation speed is simply astonishing. When you fought with Tianguang, you should only be at the late stage of the 6th level of the martial vein, and the remnant soul of the ghost ship was only 30%. I didn't expect you to break through in just 2 or 3 days. Ain Rand finally understood why he felt that Ling Xiao was more terrifying than Ling Yixue. This fellow's advancement speed was too fast. All right, I've displayed my strength. I have a basic understanding of everyone's situation. Next, it's time to carry out the mission. Ling Xiao thought to himself, I haven't displayed my 3 complete martial spirits. Otherwise, you would be even more surprised. The 4 of them left Leighton Dragon Camp and headed out of Sky Cloud City. The fantasy pill shops in the city were usually guarded by martial master experts, so it wasn't easy for them to take action. So Ling Xiao set his sights on the warehouses, manufacturing points, and transport teams, which hid the fantasy pills outside the city. Although there were experts in these targets, they were not as good as the fantasy pill shops in the city, so it was easier to take action. Coincidentally, most of the teams in Leighton Dragon Camp had chosen the same plan. So they met a few teams along the way, but no one greeted them, in case there were any complications. But there was a team who intentionally chased after Ling Xiao and the rest. Ain Rand, you're so shameless. Just because you've been defeated, you've become someone else's servant? This voice was very unpleasant, but Ling Xiao could tell that it was young Master Morong's voice. He turned back to take a look. Young Master Morong's team had as many as 10 people, and all of them were at the peak of the 6th level martial vein. Tianguang was among them. Hee, there's nothing wrong with relying on the strong. Brother Morong, you'd better worry about yourself. Ain Rand's temper was really good, or rather his determination was good. He only smiled faintly and casually rebutted young Master Morong's words. Then you should rely on me, and not them. Young Master Morong sneered. Then I'm really sorry. I feel that he's stronger than you. Ain Rand smiled faintly. Hearing that, young Master Morong's expression turned gloomy. This Ain Rand actually dared to look down on him? I'm afraid you don't know my real ability, right? Young Master Morong's pupils contracted as he stared intently at Ain Rand. Ain Rand only smiled and didn't say anything else. Ha ha ha! This fellow actually brought along a servant to make up the numbers. There's really no one who's willing to join your team, right? Young Master Morong really couldn't do anything to Ain Rand. Suddenly, he realized that Cold Plum was also in the team, so he targeted Cold Plum. Previously, he only had Ain Rand and Ling Yixue in his eyes, and the other 2 were automatically ignored. So what if he's a servant? He's still stronger than you. Ling Xiao said faintly, Tianguang and the other 8 people, you better think carefully. If you follow young Master Morong, you may never be able to return to the latent dragon camp. He already had the intention to kill young Master Morong. Today, young Master Morong was so overbearing that his killing intent became even more resolute.